Hey everybody, meow meow. Meow meow. Meow. How are you doing? It's all just plastic love. And that's what you have to remember as a streamer. If you ever get into streaming, remember, it's only plastic love. Anyway, burned bridges aside, let's get started with a couple that we thought had burned their bridges, right? Vaush and Destiny. Why are these two back together? What's going on here? Well, I mean, it's money. It's literally like plastic love. Plastic is in credit card, you know, it's plastic love. That they got the plastic love for one another, and they know that when they get together, they both make money. So it doesn't fucking matter how much they hate each other or anything like that. It just matters that they can make money. And speaking of making money, like what if you get a job, but it's from a college, not Republican like the title, but libertarian student organization, like the libertarian version of Turning Point USA put this together and brought on our boys, brought on Dylan Burns, Bastiat, and Vaush to reenact the Hippy Dippy championship, right? Because they heard like, oh, what's this thing that you got? Like, you know, well, we had the Hippy Dippy championship. That was pretty exciting. Okay, and what was that? Well, you know, it was Vaush versus Bastiat, Coconut Island. Oh, it was great. It was just great. Okay, we'll have you reenact that for us. We'll have you literally fucking reenact the Hippy Dippy championship for us as if it was something good. As if it was a big success. I mean, it definitely got the eyeballs, right? But in terms of being a good debate, I don't know. Was Coconut Island really worth it? Was Coconut Island that great of a thought experiment? You've been waiting for this one. Well, literally, I kept you waiting. I always keep you waiting. Chat, I don't know if you know this, but like if you talk, or if you kind of dig a little bit, if you talk to different people, you're gonna find out that I'm a huge bitch, horrible person, impossible to get along with. And so why would you be surprised that, you know, a self-centered, absolute just waste of space like myself would keep you waiting? Of course I would, because I'm a bad lady. I'm mean. NCC bad. Unironically, chat. NCC bad. I'm the bad lady. I can't get along with anyone. I'm self-centered. It's all about me. Yeah. Speaking of all about me, well, I wish it was all about me. Then I wouldn't have to watch this fucking debate with you. Honestly, if it was all about me, we'd be doing something different. We'd probably be playing video games. But maybe one day it will truly be all about me. And, you know, you'll see me just, you'll see my vices just eat me alive. You know what I mean? I'll just become insufferable. I'll become as bad as Destiny or Vaush after I get all their viewers. I'm getting Vaush's viewers right now, though. It's crazy. It's crazy how many people that are just, like, you know, subscribing me, they leave a note saying, like, hey, I was a Vaush fan forever, and this guy just turned my stomach. But thank you for pointing out that he's full of shit, and I like you now. So thank you, Vaush. You might not have helped me avoid cancellation, but you're definitely helping me recover from the cancellation brought about by your friend Dylan Burns at the same time that he Dylan burned you on WrestleBrania. Yeah, I wasn't the only one getting shat on WrestleBrania. Dylan took a big steaming dump on Vaush too, and Vaush said, thank you, sir, may I have another? Because that's how it be. It's plastic love, chat. It has nothing to do with anything rational. It has nothing to do with anything human. It is all just money. It is all just money. It is all literally just money. That is what this whole thing is about. Anyway, I'm sorry, chat. I'm like a little bit bitter, but like I shouldn't be. Vaush, I'm drinking your milkshake. It's really tasty. Thank you for this opportunity. Oh my god, what the fuck is Gammy doing? Why is Gammy here? What is this? I'm trying to get through. Okay, what is this? I gotta see. I've never called 911 in my entire life. Wait, so you're not based. You call 911 when you see a black person. Okay, so Gammy's pushing back. Wait. That's what Gammy looks like? Wait, that's actually... Wait. Gammy, you throw so much shade on other trans women. What the? I would have thought you would be an Insta model or something. Jesus Christ. Okay. I would only call 911 if there was like a homeless encampment in front of my house or something. What the fuck? Okay, Gammy. Well, yeah, we see you. I wasn't trying to dunk on Gammy today, but there she is, folks. There she is. There's like a little like Three Amigos thing going on, or Amigas thing going on between Gammy, what is it, Gammy, Synth, and oh god, I can never remember her name, that transmed chick, whatever her name is. But yeah, like they're like DGG's precious little transmed enclave, and you can't say nothing bad about them. You can't say nothing bad about them. Okay, so yeah, like I was saying, there's this college festival. Happened yesterday. Let's take a look at it again. I gotta show you this. Freer Festival. Okay, so here it is. Like, I just want to show you this, because this is what they're doing. The Freer Future Festival. It took place yesterday. Wait, what am I trying to find? I'm trying to find their about. Oh, there's their speakers. Okay, here we go. Here we go. The speakers, Destiny, media person. Am I a media personality, chat? Is that my job? Okay, thanks for telling me what that's what I am. Okay, so we got Destiny, we got Vaush, we got Joe Jorgensen. I like their website, though. The website's well done, well put together. Oh my god, it's a Gothics! It's Gothics! They're there with Gothics. They're there with Bastia. There's a lot of, a Fiverr millionaire. Okay, there's a lot of freaking Twitch streamers here. Gloria Alvarez, all these people. I don't know who these people are. I don't think anybody cares either, because they're pretty far down on the page. Yeah, I don't know these. I don't know these people. Do you know these people, chat? Anybody recognize anybody? Meow meow meow. Oh wait, you can't see this very well, can you? Let me switch screens so that you can. Oh. Okay. Yeah, I mean, you can kind of see. I'm gonna get yelled at for like not having the whole. But I couldn't see the other people. It's okay. You didn't miss anything. You didn't miss anything. Trust me. All right. You don't want me to have to adjust this OBS page. You really don't. It's because I'm a boomer, chat. I'm booming with the boomin' OBS. Oh my god, really? Okay, so yeah, there's Tanner Gomez. He's a performer, so we got a country singer. We got a co-founder of the Good Morning Liberty. I don't know what all this shit is. Captain Youth? Your motherfucking name is Captain Youth. His Captain Youth, chat. It's... Oh, you can't see him. He's on he's on the side. Trust me. Okay, wait. No, I'm going to actually have to do this, aren't I? I'm going to actually... I hate this. I hate this. Okay, you can see the guy all the way over to the right. That's Captain Youth. The dude's name is Captain Youth. I'm not kidding you. I'm not kidding you. Guy's name is Captain motherfucking Youth, okay? Yeah, I don't understand. What is the difference? The different backgrounds, do they represent something? There's a lot of people here. And I guess they're all libertarians except for the headliners. Except for the headliners. For some reason, the headliners are leftists. So, I don't know, chat. What I really wanted to show you, though, was the basics. Okay, it used to be called LibertyCon. It's an annual international conference hosted by the Students for Liberty. This Liberty Lovers Festival will be held in First Horizon Park, a baseball stadium in Nashville. Oh, okay, so it's not actually on a college campus. All right, it feels like a campus, college campus type deal. Conference speakers include blah 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 and blah blah blah. It's a festival of ideas. You're gonna experience educational talks, live podcasts, activities, workshops. Can you imagine paying for this? Like, can you imagine being a libertarian youth and you pay for this? You like, how much? Oh, that's what I want to know, chat. That's what I want to know. How register? Okay, we're probably too late to register, but how much does it cost? Okay. So this is decent. It's $9. You get what you pay for. $9. That's not bad. If you're a student, okay. You get complimentary Wi-Fi, Liberty Coin game, festival merchandise, access to the Brower Lounge, whatever that is, drink tickets. You get some drink tickets. You get some free drinks. This is a pretty good deal. Adult ticket, not such a good deal. $50 for basically the same stuff. A VIP experience ticket. Who fucking pays for this? Who pays for this? Who actually gets a VIP ticket? What else do you get? What do you even get? VIP concourse, general admission. Wait, general admission? Do you not have general admission? You don't have general... Wait, wow. I don't understand this. Anyway, chat, I'm taking way too long. I'm just massively entertained by this shit. I am massively entertained. Okay, so you can get an alumni ticket. What does that mean? $0 free ticket. Access to alumni social on Friday. What is the alumni? I guess maybe if you... Wait, is this if you spoke at one previously? I have no idea what they mean by alumni ticket, but look at that. They're really pumping this $2,500. And I can't even tell you what you really get. Like, what do you get more than these people if you're a VIP? You're going to pay them $2,500 for a ticket that you... If you're a student, you could get this for $9. You could probably finagle a way to get it for $0, right? You get to meet and greet with top student coordinators. Listing as event sponsors. Okay, so you get a listing. That's something. You get to meet and greet the speakers. You get the VIP concourse. I don't know what you get, chat. I think this is a horrible deal. Anyway, Jesus Christ, I can't believe. Like, please tell me nobody bought this VIP ticket experience. Anyway, chat, I am taking entirely too long. Let us proceed to the, Is it just me, or is JF Garepe the creepiest human being, like, alive? We're not doing JF today, though. We are doing Vaush. We're doing Vaush, my friends. We're doing Vaush, alright? Here we go. Vaush, he's got 377,000 subscribers, and chat, he wants more. He wants more. He wants more so bad that he's willing to go to a libertarian student festival, hide his fucking power level, pretend to be like a libertarian, just to bring some more, maybe some more people that will hate Professor Flowers with him. I don't know, chat. I don't know. Here it is. Okay. Oh, God, he did a fucking retrospect. God. This is what Professor Flowers is talking about. Like, so she came on Friday. If you haven't checked that out, it's up on the channel now. We talked to her on Bird Brains on Twitch on Friday, and we put the video up yesterday afternoon. And then, but she left. So she came back to Twitter temporarily, and then she left again because she said that the Debate Bros were still doing videos about her, and she just kind of wanted to skip all of that. She wanted to sleep through all that. She wanted to just wake me up when the Debate Bros have found another target, and they're still, like, farming the drama. They're still farming the drama with her, even though they're wrong, even though it shows their ignorance, and even though it basically ripped the mask off everything that Vaush pretends to stand for, and showed him for what he really is. A dipshit college Republican that doesn't get basic shit. That doesn't understand systemic racism, that doesn't understand that reverse racism isn't a thing. Like, he might as, like, I mean, the dude's got a sociology degree, but he might as well be a freshman, honestly, with these kind of takes. I don't know, chat. I don't know. So, anyway, let's do this. Let's dive right in. Let's dive right into this.
My only rant is that I believe that taxation is theft, and I'm not saying that as a joke. I actually believe that taxation is theft.
It's the cool kind of.
So that's the moderator. We got a mod. That's the moderator. I don't know how this works. This is the moderator. This is Vaush. This is, it doesn't matter. And this is Destiny. Now you can see, Destiny has a stand. Okay, look. There's Destiny and it's Shadow Destiny. Destiny's stand. Okay. Wait, can you see this all? Okay, chat. Yeah, we're good, right? You can see everything. Okay, so Destiny's got a stand. The moderator has a stand. Yeah, we're starting off with property is, we're starting off with taxation is theft, right? Oh, I was actually talking about this morning. We were talking about, like, the idea of, expectations. So chat, what we got is boundaries and we got expectations. Now my boundaries are like this, okay? You know, I'm a friendly person. I'm a nice person. If you ask me to help you out with something, I'll probably help you out. But there's a certain extent to which, you know, I don't want my space invaded, right? I don't want my autonomy to be, you know, violated, right? And, you know, so as a person that has trouble maintaining boundaries, because, like, I'm honestly, chat, I'm too nice. I'm too nice. Like, if somebody wants something from me, I give it to them, right? It sets up expectations. So once somebody sort of expects you to do that, okay, so I can use your shit now, it's kind of their shit. And if I try to take it back, and if I say I need that, they feel like I'm taking something away from them. This is what's happened with capitalism, right? The wealth that they're enjoying, that's our shit. And they have helped themselves to it. And so when you try to take it back from them, taxation, right? They feel burned. They feel like that's my shit. How could you dare to come for my shit? And it's like, really, no. We made the shit. It's not your shit. It never really was your shit. You were using the shit, but that was a mistake. And people are starting to wake up. People are starting to realize that they shouldn't have to expect getting trampled all over by their job, right? And that's why we have more resignations in the medical field and then the tech field than we have in a long time. People are starting to wake up, and the more we let people know how much of what they are entitled to has been taken up by the capitalist class, the more they're gonna feel like taking. So yeah, this is anyway, I don't know where I was going with that. This is the Freer Festival. Let's not weird champ about this. Let's just watch the video. Let me see. Blah blah blah. I want to read your chat. 8 Vaush, 8 Tiny Does, 8 Dylan Burns. Love no comment check. Oh hey 8 like 8. Are you British? Maybe, I don't know. Yeah, it's like hate minus the H. Okay. Maybe you're not allowed to say hate. I don't know. What's up, Legacy of Boom? Good to see you. Doesn't Turning Point USA. Yo. That's really funny. That's really funny. Okay, so this is what this is. This is like Turning Point USA, but for libertarians. Like, this is what this is. And they went to this thing, right? And you could say, well, you know, they went to it. They're getting platformed. They're getting to talk to a bunch of people who don't agree with them, who aren't leftist, and maybe change their minds. Yeah, but you're still helping a libertarian organization. Like, I don't know, what would you even call it? Like, they always want to come on campus and they want to kind of like change the narrative, right? You know, what this stuff is really about is like the Ben Shapiro. This is like a formalized like Ben Shapiroing. Is the cam and content being switched in place like international? Oh, intentional. Wait, did I do that or something? I don't know most of those people. I don't either. Isn't Gothix like... Yes. Gothic... Well, I don't know if Gothix was ever on the left, but the last I saw Gothix, she was doing videos with Ariella Scarcelli. So, big turf. Gothix, apparently. I don't know. Yeah, Gothix is kind of... Gothix is funny. Gothix, if you're out there, I'd love to debate you sometime. It'd be really fun. Meow meow. You don't have to pay extra to watch the panels. I don't know. Actually, I don't know. I'm assuming the panels... Yeah, JF is really creepy. Fury versus Wilder last night. Vaush versus Bastiat tonight. What a week in blood sports. Indeed. That was the big Rob meme. Wait, what was the big Rob? Oh my god, chat, I'm missing something from you. If you want to explain what that was. The big Rob meme. Oh, the dude from...
Theft, like Robin Hood. Well, if there's one thing on which he'll unambiguously agree with any neoliberal shill, it's this.
I wonder what that is, yeah.
Well, My name is Vaush. I'm a YouTuber, which
I
is,
believe it's
as you all know, right up there with
no, it's pronounced Vaush. It's pronounced Vaush.
academia in terms of consistent and reliable truth telling. If there's
Look at
anything that I want to
Destiny.
hit on now and always, it's the
Look at Destiny.
absolutely essential nature of democracy, whether it be in our government or our workplace. I don't think any society can survive and flourish without those things.
I'm Brian Kaplan. I'm a professor at George Mason University. I'm the author of The Myth of the Rational Voter, where
Okay, is it just me, or is like everybody from George Mason University like super conservative? Chat, do you know what I'm talking about? It's a small college on the East Coast. I think it's somewhere in Maryland or something like that, right? George Mason. It's a bit too loud. Thank you. Let me turn it down for you. But does anybody else know what I'm talking about? Like, I feel like George Mason just produces conservative academics more than other colleges do.
say democracy is much worse than most people imagine, and markets
He's wishing he could play Terraria. I know, right?
are much better. I'll leave it
Or
there.
eat pizza.
And my name is Destiny. I'm on Twitch and YouTube.
Assume human sitting mode. Yes.
I do politics and philosophy, and I'm going to be taking some position in between these two. I'm not sure which one I'm siding with yet, but I guess we'll find out in the next few minutes.
Yeah, I guess we'll find out.
So, as many of you know, today is the 54th anniversary of the death of Che Guevara. So, you've already done my work for me. I was going to ask everyone to take a moment to remember why we're here to celebrate. Sorry.
In before Pinochet did nothing wrong.
It's just I have a little bit of freedom, and some friends gave me some substances that I'm very happy that they gave me, little natural stuff, don't worry. And
This is what libertarians try to do, okay? They are, I don't know what to call them, drones, right? They're people that like get slapped on the face with the dick of capitalism, and they say, "Thank you, sir, may I have another, please, please slap me harder, daddy." That is what libertarians are, okay? Because most libertarians aren't rich, and if you're libertarian and you're not rich, you're kind of a joke. You're kind of a joke, right? You really like being abused, is what it is. And you really like sucking up to power. That's what libertarianism is about. It's about sucking up to power and hoping you get something for it, right? So, this is what they do. But here's how they pretend that they're not drones, that they're not NPCs, that they're not fucking owned, right? Here's what they do. They're like, I get to smoke weed, and I like smoking weed. Weed is so good. Did you know that I smoke weed? Did I mention that I smoke weed? You want to see my weed? Do you want to, let me show you how I roll a joint, because I smoke weed. I'm not a fuddy-duddy. I smoke weed. Yeah, that's their whole thing. Is that that's their one claim to, not being a complete fucking tool, is they're like, but I smoke weed. I was like, all right, dude. You smoke weed. Good job. Good, nice flex there, Stoner. Nice flex.
And the organizers of this event told me to drink. They were like, we already paid
This is a debate where Destiny took some meth. I don't think so. Wait, wasn't that like 2 months ago or something?
for the bar, so get yourself some drinks. So I had
Yeah, get yourself some drinks. He sure has. Yeah, this is our guy. This is our guy in the Cuba shirt. He's gonna be, listen, don't let the fact that he's a moderator fool you, okay? This guy's gonna jump into the fray, and we're gonna get to enjoy him, so yay.
a few gin and tonics and hungover. Why would capitalism do this? Anyway.
Okay, well-off dude enjoying his life under capitalism, and then joking around of like, oh goddamn, so repressed under capitalism, so repressed under capitalism. Don't libertarians also have interesting opinions? Oh, you're right. Yeah, they do. Oh my god, please tell me they're not going to bring that up. What's up, M Dragon? Good to see you.
Democracy.
Oh, hey, everybody go follow M Dragon. M Dragon, I hope I don't embarrass you with this, but I actually watched part of your Squid Game video, and you can tell a story. I like the way that you deliver narrative, and I think that if people aren't following mdragon12 right there in chat already, I think they should give them a follow, because yeah, they're good. They're a much better storyteller than I. Okay.
See.
Yeah.
This discussion, I wasn't really prepared for everybody to just say, I'm here to defend democracy. I'm here to defend. I wasn't ready for that. So on democracy, I'm a libertarian. I advocate for libertarian solutions.
He's a drunk libertarian is what he is.
To make us more free and prosperous.
More freer.
I'd like to know
that's
from
right.
you,
That's right. It's the freer fest. We're going to get more freer.
Let's just go in order, I guess.
Oh my God.
Or whenever you want to jump in.
What
What policies do you think we need to be
You make quality videos, mdragon.
advocating for right now in our current system that have chances of success? Or that you're an advocate for, that you really think has a chance of success or becoming popular in society to the point of being successful to defend liberty?
Well, I think a big one, first of all, is we need to make third parties viable. We need to get rid of first past the post voting, introduce some alternative, of which there are many. The founders of this country weren't even so sold on parties themselves, and now most Americans.
Hey, there's even more of a reason to follow mdragon. Yeah, that's not hard. That's not easy. That's not easy what you're dealing with. Listen, I stream on Twitch most of the time, so like I'm a trans woman on a Gamergate platform. But like no, that's a whole nother. That's a whole nother set of bullshit that you have to deal with as a black woman gamer in the gamer world. It can't be easy.
The largest group of which are independents, more so than Democrats and Republicans, very often feel like they don't have a voice in the political system.
The only free this moderator is ready for is to defend his free beer. You can see Destiny considering the life choices that led him here. Oh my God. Vaush on the third party's wave now. Yeah. Real libertarians do a full McAfee. No more write-in with Biden. You know what? Here's what's weird. Like, we talk about perverse incentives, and like, here we go. They've got all the incentive in the world to kind of just like maybe sand a few of the rough edges off of their, like I mean, Vaush is a leftist. Destiny probably won't have much trouble at all, but Vaush is like got all the incentives in the world to sand a few of the rough edges off of his leftism to make it more accepted to dudes like this. And the fact that he's like looking to fill his community with more shitheads, that doesn't speak well to the future of Vaush. So if you're getting off that train, this is a good place to park it, honestly, because a lot of my subs come from people that used to be into Vaush, and their stomachs turned at some point, and my stomach turned too. So listen, Vaush might not have helped me in my time of need, but Vaush, you're helping me now, okay? Thank you so much, brother. Thank you so much, Vaush.
I think we need to work on that. I think we need to work on better districting, because we know that gerrymandering has screwed to hell a good many of our districts, leading to disproportional electoral results between the general and the specific vote. And
a lot of people are saying that, mdragon.
On an economic level,
a lot of people are saying that.
I think that we need to really, really work on making sure the wealthy, which I include myself, I think here, are paying a fair share. There are a lot of systems in this country that if break down will hurt everyone, including business owners. Trust me, nobody is going to benefit from infrastructure in this country going kaput. That is a universally bad thing. We need to find money to pay for that, whether we're taking it out of the military or drawing it further from our coffers. We need to find a way.
Yeah, so normally I work on topics where I think it is quite politically hopeless, but someone needs to say it. So I have my book, Open Borders. So I think that
Chat, I'm so tempted to just like take the thumbnail here and expand it so that Destiny's like fully behind the chat. I literally don't care what Destiny has to say.
It's a very important policy to totally deregulate immigration. I'm working on another book on housing deregulation. We got to totally deregulate.
We gotta deregulate housing. Oh my God, chat, what would that do? Is housing not bad enough already? There's precious little regulation. There's precious little enforcement on housing and renting and all that shit. Like, he wants to make it even worse.
that.
This is what gets me about libertarians, is you got to be so tone deaf to be like, hey, you know how the world is a fucked up capitalist hellscape? I'd like to make it more of a fucked up capitalist hellscape. And it's just like, you got to have some privilege to be saying that, right?
My book, The Case Against Education, on funding public education. Now, in terms of policy...
Oh, wait, Destiny's like, no one knows what it's like to be neoliberal.
Policies that I favor that I think have a prayer. Here's my number one such policy.
What is their goal on this panel? That's a good question. I mean, okay, listen. I'm a little bit of a Vaush whisperer, because I don't know if you know this, but like Vaush used to follow me on Twitter. He liked the fact that I always have cute little alligators and stuff like that, and he just found me incredibly interesting. He was always in my chat and stuff, so we talked a little bit, and so I know a little bit about Vaush's thinking, okay? After, you know, kind of having to, you know, talk to him and, you know, behind the scenes and stuff, right? And I would say that here's what he's thinking. He's thinking that he's going to bust into this, like, you know, right-wing, you know, enclave of people who probably haven't really thought out their philosophy that much. They're just like, libertarian because freedom. Oh my god, chat, did I shave my pits? Somebody yelled at me in the comments of one of my videos that I should shave my pits. I think they're shaved now. Yeah, chat, I don't know. I had like a little bush under here before, but like, yeah, no, I'm shaved and ready to stream now. Yeah, but yeah, like, I think that's what Vaush would say. I think Vaush would say that, like basically he can pull people in. He doesn't even want to. He's not even going to try to sell them on leftism, right? I mean, maybe a little bit, but he's going to try to tuck all that stuff inside. He's going to seem like, you know, yeah, you like freedom? I like freedom. You like this? I like this. You like cat girls? Oh no, he doesn't like cat girls. He likes probably cat boys. You like cat boys? I like cat boys. You don't like age of consent? Oh my god, chat, I don't know. That's the question. Is he going to go that far? Is he actually going to go that far? Is he gonna mind meld with the libertarians who are like, yes, age of consent is wrong. Yes, that's the biggest imposition on our freedom. Oh my god, chat. Hopefully not. Hopefully not. Let the pit hair fly. I know, right?
Pause. Yes. Rip every COVID law off the books today. Deregulate and return to normalcy now. I don't know if it has majority support.
Kill grandma. Kill grandma. Oh, yes, yes. Oh, kill grandma. Yeah, there we go.
But it's not crazy to think that it does. And if it happened, then I think that it would, after the fact, be supported, because this is the kind of...
When the debate is long and the night is yours alone, and you think you've had enough. Oh my god, I'm gonna get demonetized for singing shitty... What even is that? How do I know that song? That would be end of a debate, bro, dialectic. Fuck you, grandma. I got mine. I know, right?
Thing where people are just supporting whatever exists.
Grandma, haven't you lived long enough? Vaush said catboys didn't exist, and if his kids would be catboys, he would be personally bully them. Vaush. Oh, it's Arya. Yeah. Oh, it's Arya. Oh, okay. From the 80s? Vaush isn't into catboys. His tastes are more equestrian in nature. I have a video about consent, and I talk about how I think age of consent should be higher. I need to work on part 2.
I think there's a lot of like dream policies that we could talk about. Green energy is a big one. Immigration reform is a big one. Some people like to talk about foreign policy. I think in terms of what's accessible right now in our current political landscape, the two biggest ones that I would like to see big improvements made to, that I think are politically feasible and possible, would be a big healthcare reform and a big reform to education. If anybody in this country is sick or needs to get checkups or needs to do something to enable them to be a productive member of both the economy and society writ large, I think that it would be good for them to be able to do so without having to file medical bankruptcy or take on other massive debts to do so. And I think that if any student has the ability...
What is the question? Like, what are a couple policies that you would get behind that don't exist? Like, what was the question? 90s.
Ability to succeed in a higher education environment, the cost for that should never be a prohibitive factor. Our workforce needs to become more educated so that they can compete on a global level, and we've seen more...
But don't worry, chat. If somebody challenges Destiny on these ideas of, like, you know, doing more for education, you know what he'll do? He'll be like, well, guess what? I don't want to forgive student loans. everybody who's already got debt, you can work that off for the rest of your life. You can never be able to afford a house. You can never be okay. You can retire in fucking desolation and misery. But in the future, maybe we should help people out more so they don't have to take those loans in the first place. Thanks, Destiny.
More and more and more how much our economy is moving in that direction. And we've also seen large swaths of society getting left behind, which is something that I hope we can change going forward.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for that introduction. Appreciate that.
Destiny reminds me of that dude in high school who took one magnet class and thought he knew better than the teacher.
I'd like to know,
There is
because
no
this
future.
topic of this discussion is also equality and how that ties into democracy. And you were just mentioning gerrymandering and how it's difficult for some people to feel represented.
Hey, listen, chat. Okay, I get that you're, you know, you're not seeing a lot of brightness in the future. You're not seeing a lot of hope. Punch a debate bro in the dick. Not in real life. Not in real life, okay? In social media, okay? You should punch a debate bro in their metaphysical, metaphorical, meta world peace dick, right? Because these are the fuckers that are getting in our way, all right? These are the people that are making it hard to get things done. And listen, if they're not gonna understand, if they're not gonna listen to marginalized people, if they're not gonna learn anything, then they should be the lolcows, okay? Like, it's time. They have had their age on YouTube is up, and I can feel it right now, chat. These are the new acceptable targets that we are going to be dealing with for the rest of this year and into the new year, right? Like, this is the new meta, chat. That we're going after these people, okay? And we might not have a chance, but we're gonna at least feel good going after them, you know, in the interim. And hey, maybe, if we make it uncool enough to be a debate bro, maybe we'll have a chance. Let's positive thinking, chat. Let's positive thinking.
Represented in government. I'd just like to know, do you feel that
Metaphysical CBT in praxis. Yeah, definitely don't do any real violence, though, because violence that's bad, and I don't want you to do that. And, you know, don't listen to what Tabby says. Yeah, because, like, I totally disavow Tabby, no.
there are particular Democrats?
Chat, I just happen to look a lot like Tabby, okay? I just happen to have cat ears. Like, you know, there's no familial link there, okay?
Graphics that are underserved in our democracy as it is right now?
Yeah, absolutely. The largest of which is the poor. There's no getting around it. The greatest discontinuity we've seen between the common will and what actually gets done is the disproportionate
But yeah, don't punch anybody in the dick.
control that the wealthy people have over the means to power. When we're talking literally about gerrymandering, of course, there have
Means
been
to
efforts
power?
to directly gerrymander communities of color, for example. There have been efforts to do that historically, which have kind of bled into the present. There are some districts which are very obviously an effort to get one more seat in. But as I understand it, gerrymandering is a universal issue. There is gerrymandering, which negatively affects Republicans in California. And what's more, the Electoral College ensures that if you're one of the millions of alternative or red voters in California, your vote means nothing on a national level, at least. That is a form of, removal from political life. That is a kind of gerrymandering in a way. It's something that we need to work against if we want people to feel involved.
I mean, listen, I know the libertarians are low information. I know they're not like the smartest dudes in the world, but I think they know what you're trying to do there, right? And they know that that what you're proposing would result in more Democratic presidents. In fact, probably never have another Republican president. If we did like a popular vote, if we did something where, you know, everyone who's in every state, you know, their vote did count for something, that's like a popular vote or something, right? And there's a movement out there. I think only a few more states have to sign on, but basically all these states have pledged that once they reach the once these states reach the majority of electoral votes, what they'll start doing is they'll start ratifying not the electoral vote totals, but they'll start ratifying the popular vote totals. So if we can ever get there where more of these states sign on to that, then basically we'd have a de facto popular vote, which would be great. The Republicans would hate that. The Republicans would try to characterize that as a theft of democracy, of against the intentions of our glorious founding fathers. Don't you understand? Our founding fathers are like religious figures, okay? Like, don't say nothing bad about my George Washington. Don't say nothing bad about Ben Franklin. Thomas Paine, we don't know who the fuck that is, so never mind Thomas Paine. Right, you know, it's just like they have this weird reverence for these people, and they'll try to use that to be like, they're against George Washington, and George Washington is like Jesus's nephew, okay? You can't be against Jesus's nephew, okay? I think it's super interesting when we see all the panels and it's like only cis white men, upper class cis white men talking about the disparity of the minorities and poor, right? Well, don't worry, chat. If you're a marginalized person, they will talk about your marginalization for you. Don't worry, chat. We're in good hands. We're in good hands, I'm sure.
Outcomes of this political community.
It's nepotism. Even the founding fathers thought the electoral system would be temporary.
Anybody else want to add to that?
Sure. So if we're
Destiny is NB and Latinx, according to himself.
just going to talk about dream possibilities, foreigners are greatly underrepresented in our democracy. Would we have immigration restrictions if foreigners could vote? I don't think so.
There was two claps. Because here's the deal. Libertarian audiences, although that's a libertarian viewpoint, okay? Free movement of people, you know, open borders. That is actually a libertarian, you know, take, you know, all things considered, right? But you're not going to get claps for that in front of a libertarian audience because there's too much fucking privilege, there's too much whiteness, and there's too much, you know, hatred of immigrants. There's too much fragility. There's too much fear of having what they have taken away from them. You're not going to get claps. You're going to get 3 claps, and that's exactly what he got. He got 3 claps.
I would agree with Vaush for sure. I think poor people are underrepresented in more than just
Maybe he'll advocate for patriotic libertarian socialism. Who knows, right?
our democracy. They can be underrepresented in education. They can be underrepresented in access to, as I mentioned earlier, healthcare, job markets, ability to move to different states. And I think that we could probably do more to accelerate poor people's access to whatever they need to climb kind of the ladder of wealth.
Okay, so I'm a participant, and I'm going to give my 2 cents on what I think is happening in adversely.
What does he mean by that? I'm a participant? So what he's saying, I'm not just a moderator.
Affecting particular demographics. When I look at the recent election in California, and a black man who went to Crenshaw High School is told that he's a black white supremacist, and then egged in public by a person wearing a gorilla suit, a white person wearing a gorilla suit, and there's absolutely no outrage about that.
Wait, do we have confirmation on who was in the gorilla suit, though?
I have questions
What if it was an actual gorilla?
about who's directing the narrative in this country.
Probably the gorillas. Gorillas and Sons in chat. Gorillas and Sons in chat. We are now infrared.
I'm sure some of you have these questions in your head where it just doesn't seem right. You know, so many things they can put out there and say, okay, this is going to start a riot. This is going to bring change. But when someone's actually trying to change things, they do things like that. They manipulate information. And it makes democracy.
Wait, what is your problem exactly? Like, wasn't this election, like, not even close? Chat, like, how close was the California recall? I don't think it was even close, was it?
Feel a little bit hopeless when the media.
What's he trying to say? That if they had, if they had shot the gorilla like it was Harambe, that like, you know, they had shot the person with the gorilla suit. What is this? Should they have tranquilized the gorilla? What does he think should have happened differently? What does he think? How does he think the election would have been different if?
Is able to control absolutely everything. So I'm wondering if you have.
Wait, I thought you were for free speech. I thought you were for free speech, right? People can say anything they want about Larry Elder.
Have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, it'll come as no surprise to the audience that I wasn't the biggest fan of Larry Elder. He, as well as I imagine every political candidate given any mainstream attention, is going to be a fair recipient of disinformation. However, I think that the California voters' opposition to him was fairly earned. I think that many of
The gorilla gang has gone too far. Yeah, really.
his policies were bordering on ludicrous, and that he's unfit to serve as a governor of that state. Not to say that its current leadership is impeccable, mind you. Only that when we look at
Gorillas and
disinformation and when we look at
Gorillas
the
and
unfair ways in which
sons.
candidates are represented, we should feel outrage at that. But we should look
One
past
with
that
the
as well
sun, chat.
and
We're
look
one
at
with
the
the sun
fundamental things
here.
people are angry at. When it comes to Larry Elder, was he at times a victim of racism? I have no doubt.
Yeah, he violated the non-aggression protocol. Yeah.
But I don't think the majority of the opposition he saw was a product of racial bias. I think it was his ideas.
Wait, was that what the dude was trying to say? The racist gorilla man that threw eggs at him.
So I will say that left-wing media bias seems to be especially egregious recently.
Cats and
Although let me just
coffee.
take this time to say that news
Cats
has
and
always been
coffee.
terrible. Right? News is there to go and try to inflame people's emotions and to get people upset about events that are logically very minor but are never.
Please don't tell me that, like, start calling it the lying news, the lying press, the Lugan.
Less very easy to show and get people to see what's going on. So my main thing is, like, you should not watch news. News is
Remember when the news was good? The news was never good.
terrible. Read books. And articles, academic articles.
Fuck this kind of media. Read this other kind of media.
Also good.
Also good. Also
I'm gonna
good
take an unpopular
articles.
stance. I actually don't
Okay, let me go to the let's see, medium.com. Here we go, articles. Okay, cool.
like the demonization of the media. I think the media shows us exactly what we want to see. I think that if I were to quiz the audience on what the latest Marvel movie was or what happens on whatever reality TV show, I think that like 95% of people would raise their hand. But if I were to ask you a question like who is the mayor of your city, or do you know more than one or two of your elected state officials, almost nobody has these answers. I think that we very much want to jump up and blame like the media shows us this, the media shows us that. There's a ton of information out there about all sorts of stuff. Nobody's going home to watch that. Nobody's turning on the TV to watch that. You can have, C-SPAN, you can have any type of TV show that's going to show you the most blasé, like we're going to go line by line through the tax code and see if we can optimize the EITC to adequately affect poor people. Nobody wants to watch it though. They want to watch a guy in a gorilla suit throwing something at, somebody running for governor. They want to see, what was the last crazy thing Trump said? When was the last time Biden tripped over himself? Like, these are the things that sell. I think that we can hold the media responsible a little bit, only insofar as much as we're willing to accept responsibility ourselves for the type of content that it is that we want to watch. And I think that if you want to look at a perfect example of that, look at what gets popular on places like Facebook and YouTube and these other massive social.
Destiny has really low opinions of people if he thinks that people don't even know who their neighbor is. I mean, like, he probably doesn't know who his neighbor is, right? No, in general, yeah.
Social media conglomerates. They have one agenda.
Destiny is kind of an elitist. And for somebody that, like, listen, Destiny has a great breadth of knowledge. And it's all about this deep. And, like, he's going to bring up Wikipedia later, and yes, reading the Wikipedia article is better than reading nothing. That's true. But, like, it's just, like, none of his shit goes beyond the Wikipedia article.
And one agenda only, and that's to make money. YouTube doesn't care if it's serving you left-wing or right-wing content. You might think that, but the reality is they just want to show you whatever's going to keep you watching the most amount of ads. And when you go to these platforms...
Also, chat, let me know if Steve is talking too fast. We can bring the speed back down to normal if that's going to help us.
Can see whatever you want to see. You're not getting the nuanced, granular takes
dilettante destine
of foreign policy or tax affairs or anything. You're just getting the most ridiculous culture wars, whatever type of content people can sell you to get you the most angry.
Goddamn culture wars.
Sure. So I actually agree with most of that. I would say the media is not responding to me. I don't watch them because I don't like what they do. But yes, if you're unhappy with the media, then you should stop watching them. Right now, most people are unhappy purely for ideological reasons. I say there's a more fundamental problem with the media, which is that they are pandering to public irrationality, that they do actually try to appeal to the lowest common denominator. And this is exactly what we should expect. But it's also a reason why we should not take the news seriously. When you realize what's really going on, the fact that people in the media care about something, it does not show that it is actually an important problem. The fact they're ignoring something does not show that it is...
He's doing his best at Ben Shapiro. I've got him turned up, too.
What they're ignoring is unimportant. Like, so, like, just to step back...
He would be a car salesman if he didn't make it into... in junior
realize
politics.
That while this is mostly driven by supply and demand, that is not actually, but nevertheless, once you realize what's going on, it does undermine the legitimacy of the media intellectually or epistemologically, even though, yes, it is primarily a business. At the same time, it is true that even the most profit-driven business can still sometimes have an agenda where the people in charge say, well, we're not going to be purely based on profit, we're going to do some other things. I think probably
it does feel like an auction
a lot
house.
of the ideological bias in the media is there, and you can see this in the rise of Fox News and other right-wing media. Regular media didn't adequately serve people that didn't have left-wing views, and then this created profit opportunities for other places to go and tell those people a bunch of wrong things that they believe, which is really what media does, is to find audiences and tell them things that are, at best, greatly oversimplified or probably just wrong.
Right. And I'd like to jump on that, both of you, actually, if I may, because I think what you're describing is a perfect example of the need for being the constant radical. You folks in the audience, we care about politics, obviously, if you're here. Maybe this isn't how you live your lives, but for most Americans, politics is nothing more than a once in 4 years, 18-month WrestleMania match that concludes with 2 hours waiting in line outside of a ballot box. That's really about the limit.
Says the guy who participates in a debate championship modeled after WrestleMania.
Now, that is not unique to America, but there are other countries that don't have that attitude. The idea of being a citizen, an active citizen, means a constant, ongoing, active process of engaging with your political system. And sometimes that does mean learning when to turn media off, and sometimes it means learning when to turn the right sources on. But nothing can get solved as long as we're sort of relegated to this very passive role of doing nothing more than voting once every 4 years and spending the rest of it whining that we're not getting the outcomes we look for.
Yeah, so I disagree. There are no countries on earth that are much better than the United States in terms of public engagement. We have very good data on public knowledge in many different countries. There are a few countries in Europe that do a bit better than the US in terms of public knowledge, but mostly this is because their countries are small and the United States is big. So yes, Belgians are much more likely to know who the president of the United States is than Americans are to know who the prime minister of Belgium is. But that does not primarily affect the Belgians are more aware. It's rather because Belgium is a small country with relatively little influence in the world, and the United States is a very large country with a lot of influence. So I'd say it is actually a general pattern in all known.
Rose Papier, I would read your. That's like you're doing like auctioneer speak, right? I can't do it. I can't do it.
Political systems that most people are apathetic and disinterested.
If I may, it really depends on the metrics that you're using. For example, local community-oriented city planning is much more common in many Scandinavian countries. The idea that cities should be built to be usable by foot rather than by car, that there should be stuff within walking distance. A lot of these city designs were a product of people caring intimately about the political processes that would drive the growth of those cities. In America, we've kind of relegated to the car industry for a few decades, and we see what that's done. I mean, if you've ever lived in LA and driven on the 405, you know what that's done. There are consequences to apathy in those respects. While it's certainly not a universal characteristic, I think being involved, at the very least on a local level, is much, much, much healthier than this constant abstract federal deference. You know, how much does the federal government directly interfere with your lives?
Look at this,
I imagine that if you take the city, county, state together,
he's playing to the crowd.
There might be a great deal more interference there, but people don't follow that stuff. They just follow the big WrestleMania match.
999.
I disagree that it's an every 4 years thing at this point, because they whipped us into such a tribal frenzy at this point that I feel like it's still every single day people are looking for their side of the political news. So I think it's a lot more systemic, and it's a problem that we're dealing with every single day now, instead of just the idiocracy of every presidential election. So I'm kind of concerned about that, because you have on the left side, they'll tell you a $3.5 trillion spending bill will cost $0. And then the very next week they'll say, we're in debt, we need to print or stamp $1 trillion coin. And on the right, these people believe that Donald Trump is still sitting in the Oval Office and that Joe Biden is in some studio. So, I mean, it's extremely dangerous. I'm wondering what your thoughts are on the danger of consuming absolutely fake news, or just the way they just direct the conversation for their followers, and their followers just blindly go along with it.
I think the problem is when it comes to our information economy in the United States, it is truly the most capitalistic in its rawest, purest nature. Of the most popular content will sift to the top generally, and unfortunately, as I said earlier, what that tends to be is the most sensationalist reading of any situation possible. Again, nobody wants to hear about a nuanced or granular take on any particular policy. They want to hear how many children died in Afghanistan under Biden, or they want to hear how many drone strikes there were under Trump, or they want to hear their particular pet issue and how upset they can be about their thing. But I don't think at the end of the day anybody is actually trying to go online and engage in meaningful political discourse to actually further the political power that they should be seeking if they actually cared about these levels on a political level and not on like a political hobbyist level. I mean, we can go back to multiple protests. You can look at, unfortunately, BLM, whose causes I'm highly sympathetic to. How many people that were part of this movement are looking to the federal government for guidance on an issue where the federal government has very little, if any, input, because a lot of this is going to be determined at the city level. Your police chief, your mayor, these are the people that are going to be making the calls on your levels for policing, but everybody wants to have a national conversation. Nobody wants to get involved at the local level.
There you
and
go,
I think when you have social media companies that are getting paid money to serve you content that serves into this kind
That is the tweet that I put out to get people to watch this. If you don't mind, if you get a chance, go over there and give it a like.
of rabid frenzy of caring about these
give it whatever you want
very hot button culture war issues. At the end of the day, there's just not really much space for somebody to come and give a well thought out take that shows you both sides of things and then shows you how you can push your issue a little bit farther. It's just going to be whoever's screaming loudest in the most entertaining fashion.
Yeah, I agree with almost all of that. And I'd say possibly the main difference is I don't think it's ever going to be different, nor is it plausible to think that it ever could be different. The thing about politics is it brings out the worst in people. It brings out the worst in people because people have an opinion, which while it matters at the level of society, if you have social policies are a function of what is popular in society, and yet for the purpose of one individual, you have actually basically no effect. This is the central thesis of my book, The Myth of the Rational Voter, which is that in democracy, even very smart people turn off their rationality and become extremely emotional. The way that I really like to explain the contrast is just listening to someone talk about politics, making a bunch of hyperbolic claims, and then you say, very good, let us bet. Let us bet. Let us put $100 on this. Let us have an unambiguous statement, which can be determined later to be true or false, and see what happens. And I have done this a lot. So betting is one of my big hobbies. I'm currently at 22 wins out of 22 bets resolved. Right? Many people accuse me of deliberately finding the most... what's the right word? Deliberately finding suckers in order to bet them. But I do just have a standing offer. I'll bet almost anyone on almost anything. It is very hard to get anyone to bet because while people like to express their opinions, they don't like the idea that they could actually be decisively proved right or wrong. They don't want to actually lose money, and they also don't want to be humiliated for having publicly said something incorrect. Although, I'm always quick to say, look down upon those who refuse to vote.
He slid in a sympathetic view for BLM. Contrast that with his take that got him departnered on Twitch, right?
Don't look down on people who bet and lose. They did the right thing. Look down upon those who say, I'm not going to bet. This is above the kind of question that one could bet on. Those are the people who really are responsible of opinions, and of course, it's the vast majority of people.
They're not turning the camera around, but I'm going to guess this is a pretty white audience.
Yeah, I bet a Republican that Biden would win in November, and I'm still waiting on them to bring it back. No, I agree though. I think you need to maybe not literally put your money where your mouth is, but figuratively at least. People say the most spurious stuff with no accountability, and this goes all the way.
Yeah, Vaush kissed his ass. Xander Hall kissed his ass. Did Demon Mama at least called him out, right? Demon Mama called him out for that. No, wait. Oh my God, I'm remembering the Demon Mama Destiny debate. Demon Mama kind of went easy on him for that, didn't she? There's one of his takes that Demon Mama completely went easy on him. Maybe not the Rittenhouse one, but the dipshit protesters one. Yeah, Demon Mama actually went kind of easy on. This is the funny thing, how much Destiny's community hates her guts, considering that she was actually trying to kind of clout chase a little bit. I mean, she beat him in the debate. Okay, that should be okay. To debate somebody and to go hard against them. Was she expected to take the dive? Is that what happened? Is that everybody takes the dive against Steve because they know that that's better for you in the long run? And she didn't agree. She didn't take the dive. She actually won a very easy to win debate against Sleepstony.
Up to media. And I agree. Infotainment is great at getting people to listen to you, but it will always prioritize sensationalism. And to that extent, there are really only two solutions. You make better media or you make better people. If you want to talk about better people, we need to talk about media literacy in classes. Now, for me at least, I think this would be a fairly worthwhile endeavor. With poor media literacy, you're really on your own, ideologically, once you're out there. I'm not talking about state indoctrination, just basic understanding of graphs and statistics, an ability to fact check, stuff like that. Most Americans can't do that stuff, It's not because they're dumb, it's because that's not a lesson anyone ever taught. I think that would go a long way, at the very least, in the long term, towards addressing some of this. When it comes to making better media, though, I admit, it seems like with the laws that we have concerning free speech and the way our media acts, sensationalism will always rise to the top. Now, you see differences in how much sensationalism is preferred in different media groups. So obviously, there are ways of differentiating between different populations. But in terms of fixing the whole problem across the board, I feel like you might have to go a little bit more radical than just addressing media. You might have to address the underlying incentives that guide media. We've seen some experience with this. The BBC, for example, which I don't like, is state-funded, not state-run, state-funded. So they don't need to worry about getting more advertiser dollars, at least.
Does he only like the BHC?
Not in the way our local media corporations do. They still have their problems. This is one of the biggest challenges we need to go into the future facing. So any perspectives from any side of the aisle are much appreciated.
I would actually chime in real quick. Sorry to sound like such a downer, but I actually don't think
Vaush just repeat Destiny's take.
Media literacy is the problem at all. I think plenty of people can be totally media literate. I think the problem is it's a level of interest. And so if you don't know my background, I argue with a lot of people on the internet. We scream at each other. Very rarely we'll have a good conversation. And over again, I've run into people who care or seem to care a lot about these particular issues. And when I push them for even 2 seconds on it, I find out that they haven't read past the headline of an article, or they haven't read past, the 180 characters of a tweet. It's not really that hard to read an article. Something that I find is if you're willing to read a full article, it can even be a Fox News article, it can be a CNN article. If you just read the 5 minutes that it takes to do it, you're already more informed than 99% of people online having that conversation. And I think that it's important to recognize where the problems come from, because if you don't know where the problems come from, you'll never fix it. You can teach media literacy until it's blue in the face. I'll teach you all media literacy right now. You want to be more? I just did. I gave you.
I get Destiny's frustration, but he's coming off a little bit elitist here, and he just doesn't have. You can't quite flex that, Destiny. I mean, you're pretty uninformed yourself, honestly.
Lesson 1 is just read the whole article. That's it. Lesson 2, Google stuff. Read the Wikipedia. People make fun of people for reading Wikipedia. They never actually read it. It's that easy to be more informed than the vast majority of people on any given topic. But I think people are just more interested in treating it as like a sports game or sports team or a hobby thing. You get online, you just scream at people. And when the problem is that, no amount of media literacy is ever going to fix that problem.
Go ahead. I've never actually defended public education in public, as far as I can recall, but I think public schools teach how to read graphs.
Do you defend it in private?
I've happened to me a bunch of times. I think it's a normal experience. It's much more what Destiny is saying, that people are disinterested, they don't try. So while it is easy to say that people are being denied opportunities to learn, it's more of people don't take omnipresent opportunities to teach themselves. It's really not that hard, but it's that people are apathetic and disinterested. And at the same time, when they are not apathetic, they are so emotional that their desire to learn is very little. They mostly want to learn a few talking points. I remember actually several times I've talked with my dad and I've shown him something I've written. He says, "Well, that doesn't look like anything I'd agree with." It's like, well, you only read things you agree with? How do you think you're going to learn anything if you only read things you agree with?
I just wish do your own research didn't mean here's the top 15 memes I saved on my Facebook page about
do your own research. Applause.
This highly complicated issue.
This guy.
It's actually the top 15 live streams you appreciate. Thank you. So I just want to say, I guess as the optimist up here, I feel like there's a lot of unexplored room for pragmatic learning in our schools. Now, it's true. I do have a bit of a negative opinion on most people's propensity to engage in depth with political information, but we can never just shrug our shoulders and say that, can we? I mean, any public policy which begins and ends with saying, people are dumb, it's not a real good game changer. There are things we could do. It's true that we do.
Oh yeah, chat, I forgot to ask you. I never do this. It's called a call to action. Hey, if you're enjoying what I'm giving you, you're going to get more of it if you hit that subscribe button. If you're feeling really frisky, maybe hit that bell too, but do anything too crazy, right? And give me a like on this video to make it pop up for more people so that they can come in and enjoy too. Because we want to make this community grow, and it is growing already. There's a lot of people that are sick of this garbage from the debate bros. They like to engage with rhetoric. They like to engage with narrative. They like to see this stuff deconstructed. They want to know how to make their case better, but they don't want to worship at the altar of debate bros, and that is the problem with these guys. So if you fit into that category, that is exactly what my channel is designed for. If you go back to my early videos, you're gonna find me kind of agreeing with some of these guys, like trying to kind of do a softer sell of like, yeah, good point on that, Vaush, but maybe this would be, you know what I mean? And it's kind of cringe. I'm probably gonna do a video on my old videos at some point and, you know, disavow a lot of that, right? I had a different approach. I thought maybe these people could be reformed. I thought maybe if I came in and said, yeah, you know, you got a pretty good idea here, but, you know, like, I don't know, I thought I could insert my my takes into the discourse, and little did I know that if you actually oppose these guys, they will fucking crush you. That's what Dylan Burns did to me. That's what Vaush is trying to do to Professor Flowers, and we've had enough of it. So we're going our own way, and we are picking up all of the shipwrecked pirates that got off the SS Vaush and the SS Destiny, right? We're picking up those who, if you watch Professor Flowers on Vaush and the shit that Vaush was saying didn't make sense to you, you wondered, like, when did he forget that, like, reverse racism isn't a thing? When did he like he seems to have lost knowledge rather than gained knowledge, right? And you know, if that's you are the perfect person for this community, and we're trying to build something bigger. Listen, we've had DGG was a mistake. We've had VGG was a mistake. Let's try NCC. Let's try N.cc. And if you know what I'm saying, chat, there may be a website in the works.
Teach basic statistics in schools, but not very applicable, usually in the abstract. A, X, and Y. We get colored triangles on graphs, but a way of relating this, perhaps. A sociological course teaching us about the ways in which certain types of language tie into different political movements, or what we can look towards when we want to deal with certain issues. Take crime in America. How many people's solution to crime in America is, well, maybe people's culture should just be less crimey? Like, there are public officials that say this. It's your job to write policy, and that's what they come up with. Well, thank you. You're paid very well for that. And the pundits who spill it, I mean, they're paid even better. No, we have to, even if it's a desperate hope, try to find ways to better acclimate the citizen.
In general, when you're blaming the marginalization of a person on the marginalized people themselves, when your solution to discrimination against black people is to tell black people to pull their pants up, when your solution for discrimination against trans people is to tell trans people to assimilate better, it's kind of cringe. It's kind of cringe, and it belies a fundamental misunderstanding of the issue.
To making good political decisions. It makes them freer, too, because being trapped by your own ignorance is the worst kind of enslavement.
So I want to talk about internet censorship for a second, because, Destiny, you mentioned that people just consume online the things that they're sympathetic with, or the things that they want to find online. And I don't necessarily say that that's true, because there is what...
That's what he said in response to Professor Flowers?
Some of us refer to as the blue checkmark army, where they're the ones who are...
Oh, man, those blue check marks. Chat. The blue check marks. The blue checkmark army. The blue check marks. Oh, my God.
Allowed to give an opinion, and algorithms will do absolutely...
Vaush has become a G
nothing for you if you're trying to break through with a differing opinion from what most of the blue checkmarks say.
Those damn algorithms, I swear to God, they're suppressing our conservative views because they're afraid of how based we are.
So I run a page called Liberty Memes, and yeah, you mentioned, oh, well, let me show you the memes on my phone. I find that that's a way to get people in to become active in something by seeing something they believe in.
What do you want to bet that they're like, that like 90% of the memes are just like Wojaks with a different text? Like it's just a pre-existing Wojak meme with the text is libertarian themed.
The biggest problem that I have with algorithms is I can't get a message. I can't get somebody to read anything either. And that's actually why I make memes, because you can't get somebody to read a whole dissertation on something, or even an article that...
There's also being bad at social media.
It's only a 2-minute read. So I'll post a meme with a whole idea and a link to an article, but I have to fit that into the first 3 lines when I post it on Facebook. Otherwise, it goes into the see more category. And nobody clicks see more. Nobody clicks on that. So we actually have enough people in the liberty movement, or whatever movement
the liberty movement, huh?
You're in, or whatever social movement you want to be involved in, to promote your ideals on social media by clicking on that content. But you don't do it because we're all seeing what we're being fed in our news feeds. We're clicking on Chinese cooking videos instead of finding the pages of stuff that we agree with to help their message get through. So I don't think that everybody has the ability to bust through the algorithm like people who are speaking topics that are on the index card of allowable thought.
I mean, I'm curious. Do you not see the irony in being a libertarian that advocates for everybody to have complete autonomy and freedom, but somehow they're all enslaved to social media feeds with cat videos and dog videos, right? That's the problem. It means that if people wanted to find content out there that didn't serve any of the main two political parties or any of the more mainstream political conversation, it's out there. You can find more on the internet today. I'm 32 than you ever could. When I was a kid and your sister was arguing with you or something,
Listen, I'm 32. I've been around the block. I know what's up. Okay, dude.
to break out the Encyclopedia Britannica to answer any of the questions. You can find the information to any question in
Is that really? Are you gonna start to flex that now, Destiny? Like you're gonna flex what a?
the world today on the internet, but people don't want it.
I don't think we're slaves to it, because if we
I mean, he's 32. His views must be correct, I guess.
really wanted to, we could just shut off our phones and not be engaged in it ever again. We could.
But how many people in this room right now have an iPhone that tells them, hey, usage up 2%. You used your phone 4 hours a day for the past week, right? I'm sure there's more than a few in here that have had that.
He played devil's advocate to challenge her viewpoint, but I actually think it wasn't hypothetical. I think he believes it. I wonder if the libertarians will try to finesse Vaush into saying what they want to hear. No doubt, and I don't think Vaush minds doing that. Like, right? It's kind of hard to know what Vaush actually does feel. It's easy to sort of sell, to have a different version of your take that you can sell to different audiences, and pretty soon those just become different takes, different sales pitches, if you will.
Well,
I might use it a little bit.
Yeah, four. With regards to this, I mean, this is fundamentally a problem of free market economics. Social media is run as a ground down to the nose attention economy, in which only the most ruthlessly efficient deliverers of information and entertainment can survive. The only alternatives to this, again, functionally, are either better consumers, a difficult prospect, or some kind of regulation, whether that be governmental through terms of service agreements or something else. But this is ultimately one of the big problems that very left-leaning people have with this type of economic driver, which is that there are externalities. We have maximized the thing we're prioritizing, which is watch time. But we've left other things to the side. Reliability, trustworthiness, or if nothing else, the ability to properly diversify the content you consume. I've heard convincing arguments that one thing we might want to do, even though it would be hell for advertisers, is get rid of social media feed algorithms just forcing you down a given path if you've decided you like a given set of things, This is a very modern phenomenon.
Wait, is he saying get rid of the algorithm, though? Or is he saying reform the algorithm?
When you're on TikTok, Twitter, whatever, you cultivate your feed, and after that, you are locked in. And without deliberate effort, it's hard to break out. In real life, with the internet,
Actually, I heard that YouTube, and I've seen evidence of this, that YouTube's trying to get out of that a little bit. So what YouTube does is, now it figures that, okay, we got the algorithm pretty good. We're able to funnel people down into, whatever you're into, whatever you like, whatever you're going towards. We're going to push you further towards that, right? But then they're also but what if we're missing something? What if our person who's all into Steven Universe and who's all into mental health and is all into you know what I mean, these crocheting videos, what if they also like college football and we're missing that? So they'll throw you legit chat. I got thrown some college football as if they were just kind of is this of interest to you? And it's no, it's not. But I can see that they're and I think what they do is they try to do 1 out of every 600 video suggestions maybe is something that's out of your wheelhouse, just to see if anything was missed, just to see if there's any more complexity to you as an individual than they previously thought.
Couldn't do that unless you were in a cult, right? I mean, the way in which you communicated with the world was diversified by nature of it not being digital. Oh, and my PR manager called. They said to clarify that being ignorant is not actually the worst form of enslavement. Just to clarify. Anyway, I don't really have any solutions to this, I guess, outside of more deliberate, drastic action.
Wait.
So in terms of externalities, I don't see
Is White Nervosa at his ear? Chat, what's going on?
the externalities so much as just people are bad and want bad stuff. Right? So it's the same as with many other markets where the market's working just fine, satisfying consumer demand. And it is not the case that consumers are actually doing much to anyone other than themselves in terms of the media they're consuming.
Bad political decision-making leads to bad political decisions.
If you allow me to finish. So now here's the thing. Now, you may step back and say, yes, this is really messing up the politics of the country. I will say that the politics of the country does seem quite bad to me, but in terms of what social media is doing to it,
if they can
in a way it's more than just revealing the way that things always were even more clearly than before. One of the main differences that you see between now and when I was a kid is when I was a kid, there were so few, the technology didn't allow you to have so many choices, and so it appeared that the opinion was more unified than it really was. And social media has now exposed that there are many weirder views out there than you previously would have realized. But the thing to do is step back and say, all right, given what the free market is giving us, what people actually want, what is the alternative? And say what's going like the real agenda of regulation is to take one particular view and to turn it into the forcible orthodoxy that everyone is told. You know, if you look at what has been going on in social media now, so far they're not regulated. They're just worried about getting regulated, and so they're trying to preemptively self-regulate in order to get some of the criticism off their backs. I'll say, as you can see, that almost all of the self-regulation is just about giving additional left-wing indoctrination to a broader audience. It's really about getting diversity or getting better views. It's about taking one of the many crummy views and trying to tell everyone that's the true view.
I think for two things. One, the biggest problem with alternative media or social media-driven media today is not that it's exposing things. It's that it's created this epistemic divide between groups of people in terms of people don't even understand what's real anymore. I don't know, what is it like? Is it 50% of the Republican Party still thinks that Trump is the legitimate president? You have these people that believe, I don't want to hit on any COVID topics because I don't know how much of a hot topic that is. You have all sorts of people that believe these things that are not just a matter of different opinions or not a matter of exposing like, oh, well, this is just how things are. It's a matter of people are just buying into complete and total fabricated fact. Stuff called alternative facts, I think, is the Trump administration. And this is a problem that is, I believe, the largest country or the largest problem in our country today. I think it is actually destroying our ability to have conversations. A really uncomfortable conversation you could have about January 6th, for instance. It sucks what happened, but if you're in the heads of all of those people that showed up for that protest turned riot, and you truly did believe that your country's election was being stolen from you, you truly believe that there was a grand conspiracy in the Democratic Party to disenfranchise the majority vote in this country to appoint Biden as president. I mean, I'm a little bit empathetic to why they would go in. This is the problem. When you live in these different information worlds, you can justify all sorts of...
Oh my god, we got some Dune readers in chat.
Behaviors, because your particular collection of facts might be an adequate justification.
We need a Butlerian jihad. That's destroy all the all the thinking machines. Oh, okay. That's what you're talking about. Any machine with the capacity to think. That's what we. Yeah. So yeah. It wasn't a complete revolt against technology. It was a revolt against technology that thinks for you, right? Which had become a problem in that. In what was it? Serena Butler. Yeah, Serena Butler, right?
Patient for it.
Well,
I'm going to actually do that. I'm going to actually take a
since you touched on January 6th,
I will be back as quickly as I can.
First of all, I'm just consuming fake news, but personally, I don't think that anything absolutely crazy happened other than some protesters being wahoos. I don't mind. That's up to you guys to have that opinion. But if like you say, they were consuming fake news that convinced them that their country was being taken over and they were flooding the Capitol for that reason. What's the difference between them and the Black Lives Matter protesters that did the exact same thing in the summertime in the Capitol?
No. Hold on, if I may. I think it's a perfectly fair question.
Oh my god,
actually.
I don't want to leave right now.
If you look at any major social movement, you will see disinformation.
I don't want to leave right now.
That was
This is
the
getting
case
good.
with BLM, that was the case with the Civil Rights Movement, the Suffragette Movement, the Abolitionist Movement, the American Revolution, and everything prior to it. Misinformation is just a part and parcel of life. You try to minimize it, but at the end of the day, it is something that will be produced and sometimes focused on. You have to take a look at the underlying social motivations and the processes that led to that. So with regards to the January 6th stuff, again, you can, as you said, normalize very terrible stuff with the wrong descriptive understanding of the world. You can take just about every heinous totalitarian ideology that's ever festered on this planet, whether you want to go Nazism or Stalinism, Pol Pot, wherever you want to go. If you fed a person the right set of facts about the world, big air quotes, by the way, you could approximate those ideologies. Not perfectly, maybe, but you could get them about 95% of the way there. And since people's ideologies tend to be molded by the world they believe they live in, I think they'd go the rest of the way themselves. It's critical that we do everything we can to maximize the extent to which people are being given good info, or at the very least, that the misinfo they're being given is
I can at least listen to this, because I don't want to miss this.
We had a
getting
largely
spicy.
peaceful social protest, the largest in American history. There were problems with it. Some folks did get hurt, but some did during the Civil Rights Movement too, You can't do do-overs on this. Any social movement in history has got its bad spots, and if you go ahead saying, well, that one shouldn't have happened because of this and that, then I don't know, we'd all be living in we'd all be Romans or something. I don't know. We wouldn't have evolved socially. I'm very cautious when we say stuff like media is giving people the narratives they want. What's the issue? Because if you asked a Roman what they would have wanted, what would they have said? I don't know, bloodier gladiator fights? A horse-drawn carriage master back in the 1800s. They would have wanted better horses, healthier horses,
I'd like to actually get to Professor Kaplan in a second.
Oh, sure,
Yeah, anything else? Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. Whenever I hear these discussions, I'm always thinking, so what do you imagine regulation is going to do? Right? You can say, well, regulation is going to get rid of the misinformation. Misinformation according to who? According, as far as I can tell, to the left-wing side. So what we're going to see is that side will get to say that their view, which combines some true things with a lot of misinformation, is the official view. In terms of what good you even think it would accomplish, what do you think that all people who are not left-wing are going to think when they see that social media is full of content warnings against any view that is that is not liked by left-wing people? It just undermines the credibility of it, and I don't think it does. Unclear that it does anything, or maybe actually makes the conspiratorial thinking even worse to see even the social media companies are part of this. One thing that I've noticed in the last year or two is how many right-wing people say, look, I just don't trust anything on social media, they're against us. And this is just for moving very moderately in the direction of having some content warnings. If there were actual regulation where they really were stripping out anything deemed misinformation by left-wing orthodoxy, I think this is going to give you probably a worse situation than we got now.
I wholesale reject the, I hear this, the libertarian argument so much is, I'm going to present to you like what we have now, and then I'm going to say that the only alternative is the most authoritarian, crack the whip. There's a team of blue check marks breathing down the neck of every 17-year-old person that just read Atlas Shrugged looking to ban them off of social media. I don't think that this is the case where it has to go. I think that there are places that, there are things that we can do to encourage a little bit more media literacy, encourage a little bit more media responsibility. So for example, I think on Twitter, something as dumb as when you go to retweet an article, it'll say, hey, have you read this first? Now, might not be popular, but maybe that could expand into a little like captcha quiz. Like, hey, you're about to retweet this article. Do you have any idea what, are we allowed to cuss here?
What's that?
Are we allowed to say bad words here?
Say whatever you want.
Yeah, you're about to tweet an article and it asks you, right?
Shit.
You're about to read an article and ask you, do you have any idea what the fuck you're reading, right? I think that these are okay questions that you can ask. I don't think it has to be all one side or all the other, because I will say that right now, as somebody that has lived and breathed this media environment more than most other people on the planet, and then Vaush will be included in this as well, in terms of people that have lived in these media environments, the track that we're on right now is a disaster. Something has to change. We have to move off of where we are, because the polarization in this country is just out of control. Whether we look at the voting rates between urban dwellers and people that live in rural communities, whether we look at the stagnation of the Senate and our inability to do anything across party lines, whether we look at how we poll on racial issues or how we poll on religious issues or how we poll on things like abortion. We've got Texas passing our draconian bounty hunter laws to get people in trouble for driving somebody to a Planned Parenthood clinic. This is not working. Whatever is happening right now is not working, and I refuse to let people hijack the conversation and say, well, there might be problems with your alternative suggestion. Well, I mean, yeah, there might be, but what we're at right now is a sinking ship. You have to try something.
Yeah, I don't think that I was painting the worst possible picture of what regulation would be like. I think that's actually what it would be like. In terms of what we have right now, we're already seeing these kinds of content warnings you're talking about. So, and I will say 100% of the content warnings that I see on Facebook and Twitter are left-wing. 100%. People that are not left-wing see this, and it does make them think, the system seems very stacked against me. And it does actually encourage conspiratorial thinking. And I say, if you imagine something that was more aggressive than that, something where every time you tried retweeting something that was against left-wing orthodoxy, you got a warning that you should read something where people notice, well, it seems like they never do it to anyone other than people on my side. It does make people feel worse. I think that if they really tried doing it that aggressively, you would actually finally see the rise of alternative social media, because it would actually lead people that did not agree with it to say, I don't want to be on this anymore. So far, social media has tried to say, well, we don't want to make it so severe that people that disagree don't want to use this anymore. But it is actually getting to the point where if you disagree with standard left-wing views, you feel like you're using a platform that is hostile to you.
Do you think that there might be a problem in terms of one side of the political aisle representing, now I'm not going to say the Democratic Party is perfect, but representing slightly more factually true statements than the other? Because what do you do when it comes time to rectify the problem? If you're a Republican and you believe that the coronavirus is fake, that vaccines are going to turn your body into a giant magnet, that Trump is still the president of the United States, that MS-13 illegal immigrants are coming through and murdering people over the country, yeah, you're probably going to feel like any type of fact checker is biased against you. I don't know what the proper way to baby people through that problem is, I'm genuinely curious. Do you think that there exists some, again, I'm not saying that the left is perfect, because trust me, I've been involved in a lot of my content calling out left-leaning creators and being like, hey, I don't think this is factually accurate, but it does seem that there's a big difference between, hey, we disagree over the finer points of, this particular BLM homicide case or this police case versus Donald Trump is absolutely not the president of the United States. There's just an information gap here.
I'd like to know, though, how do you determine the difference between real news and fake news? And you get to a point where, for example, and again, I'm coming from the right wing, and I'm actually referring to what CNN reports. Now, I've been involved in the Cuban Liberty Movement for decades, and I know in general what the Cuban exile community is looking for, and what the community in Cuba who was just protesting in July was protesting for, and that's a brutal communist dictatorship over the last 62 years that uses their people as a farm so that they can have largesse. Now, at that point, it's devolved into state capitalism. You're not allowed to call it communism. But the point is, when I was watching CNN this summer, they told us that the protests in Cuba were because they didn't have vaccines. And that is not what the protests were about at all in any sense. So when you see things like that, and they're in Kabul and they say they're mostly chanting death to America, but they seem very friendly, or when they go to a burning city and say that it's a mostly peaceful protest, you start to wonder, where do I find news that I can rely on? So you'll start to wonder, why don't people believe that COVID is real? Why don't people believe in vaccines? So let's change the subject to COVID. And what do you think should be done right now with COVID? And do you think that the current, the solutions that were offered in the beginning were acceptable across the board, or do you have differences?
Right. A quick thing that I'd like to hit on first of all, though, I worry about this. How do we discern between fake and real news? Because I think it's really rather easy. When it came to the protests in Cuba, a lot of that was the Cuban government's poor handling of the coronavirus pandemic, their inability to quickly respond to the growing need for, among other things, vaccines. With Kabul, if you take a look at polling across many countries in the Middle East, the population is not actually that antagonistic to the United States. Their governments tend to be, and we focus on the protests where they're shouting death to America. I'm sure if you look in America, you can find protests of people shouting death to America. It's a sentiment that is held in places. But we need to look past the narrative that's being driven, try to draw out a greater truth based on what we think is most or least harmful. There will always be misinformation, but what worsens the world to the greatest extent? Now, speaking to COVID and misinformation, which worsens the world considerably, I believe this is fully consistent with any libertarian principle, by the way, was very much in favor of not only what we had now, but lockdowns early on. See, it turns out that in the states that implemented lockdowns after they were taken away, the businesses continued to flag and stagnate. Why? Because people still aren't shopping. Because of COVID. COVID was the problem. Lockdowns were just a way of shoring up the edge cases of people getting sick in their workplaces, which happened, and there were vectors, and there is plenty of data to demonstrate that lockdowns were, both here and in foreign countries, effective in their own ways. Now, some people think this is an imposition on your freedoms. And I say this, your freedom to keep your business open is infinitely less important than the world's freedom to move beyond an ongoing plague. That is by far the greater freedom. There is just no getting over that. And if it comes down to those two between each other, I would take the latter anytime. And the faster we get over the pandemic, the faster people start shopping again. So really, it's in all of our best interests.
Now, I know Professor Kaplan does not agree, and I would like to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, so I've actually written several pieces on the cost-benefit analysis of COVID versus COVID prevention. And not only is the control of COVID not infinitely more important than the other stuff, it's almost the other way around. So by my calculations, which I presented them to a wide variety of audiences, and I just said, like, I mean, I do not have time to go through the numbers, but in the audience, like, these are the key variables. Tell me how you want to change the variables according to my estimate in order to change the answer. And really, even on very conservative estimates, the total cost of all the COVID prevention is about 15 times the value of the total life saved. Now, as a libertarian, I am not a utilitarian, but I will say that if you are a libertarian and you favor things that do not favor government action that doesn't pass a cost-benefit test, there's something wrong. At minimum, libertarians should oppose government action that fails a cost-benefit test. So again, like, just to give you an idea of the key story. So like, here's the question that I begin with. How many months of normal time is a year of COVID time worth to you? Right now, almost everyone will give an answer of 10 months or less. What this means is that the prevention of COVID, all of the efforts, have actually led to the destruction of an enormous number of life years. You go and compare this to New York Times estimates of the total life years lost from COVID, it dwarfs it. Then if you say, well, the correct thing to do is to go and compare life years that have been lost from prevention with the life years saved, even on very conservative assumptions about how much worse it would have been if nothing was done, we wind up coming up with an answer, we're coming up with my answer, which is that this has been a ridiculous moral panic. The cost of prevention has been much greater than just allowing the disease to take its full toll. Now that said, there are some important things that could be done with COVID, like legalizing the vaccine for kids now. It has taken a crazy long time to do that, and there's no good reason why parents' decision on this should be overruled, right? And by the way, I do urge everyone to get vaccines. They do work, but at the same time, I'm not going to put a gun to your head and try and make you do it.
Doesn't it? I think it's a mistake. I think that a really common error in judgment we make, as unintuitive as it sounds, is we tend to evaluate how successful or unsuccessful something was based on the outcome of that thing. And it seems like a reasonable way to do things, but if you spend any time at a poker table or if you spend any time doing probability, you realize, well, something might have turned out good, but you made horrible decisions every step of the way. Something might have turned out pretty poorly, but you actually made all the right decisions and there was some unknown variable or something that you just didn't account for well enough. When it comes to talking about, like, well, the preventative measures that we took for COVID ended up costing way too much, we would have to, I guess, dig through how you do your particular calculations, but the idea that, say, another variant comes out that's slightly more infectious or slightly more deadly, maybe 2x, 3x, 4x more deadly than the last, is always something that's going to be very difficult to factor in any sort of risk assessment. That being said, I do think, again, it's important that we have a granular approach to how we do things. I don't believe that every single country has to be Australia. And I don't want to speak to all of their shutdowns, but my understanding is Australia is some of the most insane shutdowns of any country in the world, although it also has one of the lowest case rates to show for it. But there's probably some things that we could all feel reasonable enforcing. For instance, wearing masks is not a big deal. Socially distancing is not a big deal. These are probably guidelines that most of us can follow that don't have a significant harm to the economy, that also allow us to kind of move forward through this pandemic. And then also encouraging people to be vaccinated, whether that's private business requiring employees to do it, or the government providing it for free. I think are also beneficial things to help us move a little bit further past it. But I'd be very cautious in saying, well, look, we spent a lot of money, so it wasn't worth what we did. But we don't really know how bad it could have been.
I let it roll. Okay, listen. Okay, so he's talking about, like, what's going to happen. Like, I know you want to get, greater control over disinformation, and that's all well and good. I'm all for that. But it seems like a lot of these controls are cutting against the right wing. What's a right winger supposed to think about that? Okay, dude. What if one of our major political outlooks is built on a backbone of ignorance? What if it only works when you don't know what the fuck you're talking about? What if context destroys this belief? Right? What if actual facts and context make this belief untenable, right? And in reality, we shouldn't have been having an argument, a dialogue between, like, slightly higher taxes and no taxes, like better COVID, policies and no COVID policies. What if this isn't the argument that we should have been having? Because one side of the argument is absolutely ridiculous. What then, dude? Because that's what your thing. That's what your whole thing is. Like, yeah, this is gonna seem kind of unfair. Well, you know what? I guess facts don't care about your feelings. I guess reality has a liberal fucking bias to it, right? And it shouldn't be that way because this fucking whole viewpoint is astroturfed. It's not even what the rich believe. It's not even what the paymasters behind the right wing's existence, right? It's not even what they believe. They don't believe this shit. It is slop that they are feeding to their fucking dopes year after year. They are serving it up. Here you go. Here's your slop. Here's your slop, hogs, right? And they're eating, right? This is astroturf. This shouldn't even exist. All these people are useful idiots for the right wing. So that is why all of your warnings are cutting against one side rather than the other. So what do you say to that, my friend? Because, like, in all actuality, I think that if we're going to have a two-side political system, it should be something like SOCDEMs on the right arguing against, like, leftists on the left, right? Like, that's a better, dialogue to have. That's a more, like, I still think it's pretty clear, which side has more facts on it, right? or which side is, in the interest of more people, right? But at least that is a real discussion. Whereas is Trump actually, somehow, like, did Trump get robbed? Like, that is not really a question. That is not a real viewpoint. That is not a real argument to have. That's not worth platforming, is what I'm saying, all right? There's some ideas that are so bad, that are so wrong, that are so obviously manipulated, that only exist in a circumstance, in a deregulated fucking political landscape where people can astroturf, where the rich can literally social engineer us into believing things that are wrong, that's even tenable. So yeah, libertarian guy, like, if I was Batman and you were Robin, you know what would be happening right now, right? You know what would be happening. Okay, you understand. Get out of here with that shit. Get out of here with that garbage. Come on.
My own opinion on this is, no, sorry guys, you can boo me again, but I don't trust the official story on COVID. Oh my gosh.
Oh my gosh. Oh my god, I'm such a bad boy. I'm such a bad boy. You go spank me.
I don't think that the measures that were put in place in New York State or in other places where they didn't let you leave your house or run your business, I don't think that those were okay. And we paid people to stay home, and now we have a job market where nobody wants to work because they're still figuring out ways to get paid to stay home. And I don't believe that it's because of COVID that we didn't have this 5 million jobs increase that they were proposing would happen. The jobs report from September came out, and there was only 190,000 jobs that were added in the whole country. In order to recover to pre-COVID numbers, they still need 5 million. How do you solve that? I just personally feel that the COVID measures got us to that point. But when it comes to the vaccine, and the vaccine is being pushed on us by the government, and it's the same government that we're told was funding gain of function for the virus that they're telling us we have to get vaccinated for. It becomes a point where you're like, why? How do I believe this?
Okay, to be clear, the gain of function stuff.
Speaking, I think to getting our.
Wait, YouTube will not what? That I said that the Republican take on Trump was absolutely untenable and ridiculous.
Good media with regards to the funding of gain of function research, as I understand it, we still don't have any direct link between U.S. government policy and the funding of gain of function. But I'm going to leave that aside because if anyone disagrees with me on that, you're not going to be changed.
We don't care about the stuff the government makes us do as long as it benefits, as they benefit. Yeah.
My opinion. It doesn't matter when we talk about domestic COVID policy. These are actually two entirely separate things. Even if you were deadline on track on getting Fauci to a human war tribunal or something, that has nothing to do with the.
Yeah, as a libertarian, he should probably. Well, I mean, if he, oh god, these dudes are so disingenuous. Libertarianism, I swear to God, is a manufactured point of view. Like, listen, the only people who should be libertarians are like the Koch brothers, and one of them is dead. Okay, and like Jeff Bezos, right? Libertarianism benefits in fact, not even them, because if I was gonna advise them, if I was like their advisor, and like my job was like, let me make sure that like you got a pretty sweet deal, dude. Let me make sure you keep it, okay? I would advise them against advocating for libertarianism. I'd say this is gonna get you guillotined. Don't do this. Look. Here's Keynesianism. Sell them Keynesianism. You can get them on Keynesianism. Sell Keynesianism. It'll make them think that you care about them. You know what I mean? It'll make them happier. It'll make them less likely to revolt. We can put them right back into the Matrix with Keynesianism. Put them in the Matrix, okay? Keynesianism, right? Make things good. Make things sustainable. Make it easier for them to make ends meet, right? With Keynesian economic policy, and your neck is going to be a lot safer. I don't want you getting guillotined. I don't want you getting, I don't want the worst case scenario to happen. That is possible if you enact this libertarian hell world. Please do not advocate for these policies. We can get them with Keynesian. It's so easy. It's a conservative viewpoint that hides itself as a lefty viewpoint, right? You could do this. Like, if I was their advisor, I would be pitching Keynesianism big time, okay? And that's the truth of the matter. That's what I'm talking about. This is where the discourse should be. Keynesianism versus leftism, right? That's the real discussion. That's the real that's where American politics should be, honestly, right? And instead we're having to deal with is Donald Trump secretly based? No, he's not. Did Donald Trump somehow get robbed in the election? No, he didn't. This is shit that we shouldn't have to be arguing.
Ways in which we could.
Is the My Pillow worth $60? No, it's not. It's a piece of I got one because my roommate gave me one, okay? It's just a pillow. It's got fucking foam in it. It's got like chopped up pieces of what the fuck? Why are you paying $60 for this shit?
Effectively, and yeah, we should ignore the sideline issue, because to me, we're dealing with what, 750,000 dead in this country when we come up.
Libertarianism is just for fascists who got kicked out of whatever fascist group for being overtly pedo. I don't know though. I think that overtly pedo thing is.
On the Civil War.
Oh, I see what you're saying. I get it.
Death toll will be the most deadly event in all of American history, which is insane. You know, we got the vaccines pretty near
Good
first,
point,
what with
Frodo.
us being America. And when you take a look at the rate of vaccinations, at first we skyrocketed. People like me got vaccinated. But now we have flagged behind other countries, European countries. You want to be outdone by Europe? They're now 10, 15, 20 percentage points higher than us in the vaccine. And why? They're also capitalist. Their media should be feeding them the exact same disinfo our media feeds them, shouldn't it? If it truly is just a natural human condition issue, then this should be a ubiquitous issue. But it's not. There is something about this country, this festering and unhealthy attitude towards this condition, towards this
I'd
problem.
like to get to Professor Kaplan again. We don't have a lot of time. Go ahead.
Yeah, so Destiny is right. It is often hard to figure out whether or not you did a good thing. You could do everything.
Keynesianism is mostly about preventing crisis, but a lot of capitalists earn too much money from every crisis. That's true, but like, if I was their advisor, I'd be protecting this right here. I'd be protecting this, right? You know, and that's a real concern. They act like they don't. They think that they're at the end of history, but holy shit, if you're not careful, dude, history will swallow you right up. Don't think it can't happen. Don't think it can't happen.
Right, and things work out badly, and vice versa. However, this is a case where we actually have very strong reason, in fact, definitive reasons to know that we did not actually try very hard to get to the right answer, because there was a technique that could have been used very early on, and that is voluntary human experimentation. Voluntary human experimentation would have cut the time in order to find out whether vaccines worked down from 6 months to 1 month. Voluntary human experimentation could have been used to find out how deadly diseases were. Voluntary human experimentation could have been used to find out how well masks work, and so on. And yet, no country on earth did it. And why not? Well, it's a great question, but
Well, we
I say
did
that
the
it definitely has
Tuskegee
a lot to do with the great aversion to paying people to do things that are useful.
We did the Tuskegee experiment, so, you know.
Oh,
but this is an issue.
hey, all right,
but this is an
stop,
issue.
stop.
The reason I think
All
it's an
right.
issue.
So,
The reason I think it's an issue.
I
is
have
because
heard that from the human subjects people at my university to explain why it is that I need to get the permission to ask people questions. All right, the fact that one time, decades ago, there was a horrible thing which was a crime under the law of the land at the time, and is a reason to say that someone cannot voluntarily go and get and be part of an experiment in order to cut
maybe
the time.
it's not a big deal in the white community, but in the black community, it's a very big deal.
Look,
Most
it was
African
illegal at the time.
But most African Americans
it
feel
was illegal
slavery.
to
It's
infect
still an
someone
issue.
with a disease without their consent at the time.
Well, you guys are supposed to be on the same team. I think.
But most African Americans who are hesitant to get the vaccine or are speaking out against it are saying this because they have an example in their community of a time when the government did testing on them. There are people who are paranoid because there's a lot of insane stuff that goes on. So that's my.
Or Jenny McCarthy.
This
A lot more people have heard of her and her crazy stuff than any of this history.
I think you're hitting on the do your own research community. And I've talked to so many of these people. If you don't want to trust the government, you don't have to trust the government. That's fine. You can hate the government. You can even hate the pharmaceutical companies in the United States. Why not look at any other government on the planet that is looking at these vaccines? Why not look at any other private company in the planet that is looking at these vaccines? Why not look at any of the...
Okay, I'm looking at this debate, and something weird happened here. First of all, it looks like a desktop. It looks like a desktop if, like, a virus took over your desktop and, like, just spammed it with, like, 2 icons or something. I don't know. Doesn't this look like a desktop? Do you know what I'm saying, Chat? The way that it's spaced out, does it not look like a desktop? It looks like a desktop with 2 apps over and over again, right? But anyway, I feel like something happened here. I feel like there was supposed to be maybe more right-wingers to debate Destiny and Vaush. And maybe some of the right-wingers didn't want to. Like, they've got a ton of libertarian... Like, this is all libertarian... This is a libertarian conference, right? We could have found more people, and yet you got a stoned guy with a Cubist shirt, and you got this professor guy, and those are the only... They can't even get their shit straight between the two of them. Like, one of them is like, yeah, like, look... Tuskegee, what? That's not a problem. That happened a long time ago. Nobody knows about Tuskegee, right? And it's like, okay, Whitey. Okay.
academic institutions in any country. There are so many.
That's supposed to be the moderator. Well, that's right. The moderator is you know, part of the debate because, okay, so as somebody that sets up panels, this is what you see when, like, let's say you invited Vaush, Destiny, and two libertarians, or let's say you invited Vaush, Destiny, you know what I mean, Bastion, and 2 libertarians, right? And the libertarians don't show up. This is what happens when somebody doesn't show up. This appears to be somebody not showing up, right? And I'm just wondering how that happened, because they've got a ton of people. Maybe just like there's some chance that the other guest realized that they would not look good on a panel with Vaush and Destiny. There's some chance that that's what happened. Destiny is an MB Latinx. Yeah. It's
people
the
that are on board
joke
saying that
attack.
these are safe. And if
I like how these people just say stuff regarding the black people without a single black person to talk to about this. And another thing, interestingly enough, would be unfair to make one black person have to take on all of them, plus the moderator. Yeah. Well, the moderator at least is smart enough to realize that this is an issue, right? And to like, you know, but yeah, our libertarian professor just wants to hand wave it.
effective. And for some reason, the do your own research crowd has convinced themselves that a guy that makes a ton of money selling you, crazy energy drinks and neurotropics online is going to have the answer for you. But this
Wait, can I get some crazy energy drinks?
conglomeration of all these private companies, academic research, and government-funded institutions aren't going to be able to do it. I totally don't buy that answer. Not even remotely close.
I need some energy drinks, chat.
Well, I just want to say that, I mean, continuing on from that, I don't know why anyone has an issue with corporations saying you got to be vaccinated to work there. I mean, especially from libertarian communities, right? Why have the government force business owners to not decide who they'd like to freely associate with? In this case, it's being done for good. We've had drug tests in this country for decades, and that's done nothing but disenfranchise folks for nothing. I don't know if anyone ever smoked weed and couldn't do their job because of it, as long as they were sober by the time they got to work. But then you have the vaccine.
Wait a minute. Vaush, you're kind of like, it's so weird. Vaush on his stream, weed's not really that good. Weed's overrated. Stoners are stupid. Vaush at a libertarian conference. Weed 420. Fuck yeah, 420 blaze it. He's 420 blazing it for these libertarians. See, he's changing his point of view.
Into the current plague. I don't know. It seems like there are some good arguments for that.
I mean, if Hollywood...
The monitors are playing devil's advocate, but very jokingly. Yeah, he is making like something really serious into a joke, and that's fucked up. He doesn't take seriously. Well, yeah, because he's too stoned, honestly. And listen, if you're gonna get stoned and moderate a debate, the least you could do is get some rice cakes and eat those while you're moderating. That's what I do, chat. I throw my hoodie up over my head, my cat hoodie up over my head, and I eat rice cakes.
Actresses wanted a job, they could just let Harvey Weinstein rape them. I don't know. I'm both, so thank you.
Tuskegee experiment is a really bad argument against people voluntarily with informed consent taking. Yeah, I know. Why the fuck did that even...
I do have a question, actually, that's going to make the audience and the panelists kind of mad.
There's so much wrong with the takes in this debate. I don't even know where to start to unwind them.
It's about race, and it's about abortion. So, it's a question about race and abortion, and I'll ask it now. Do you feel that
Vaush sounds further to the right than Destiny.
High percentage of abortions sustained over
He's going for that crowd.
various generations in the African American community has adversely affected?
Here's what I want to know, though. Like, okay, honestly, like, why did they do this? Right? I mean, I don't know how many people attended this festival. I guess it's just for content, right? But I mean, Vaush is taking a trip from LA to Nashville. That's a long trip. That's not necessarily a fun trip. That's, you're in Tennessee now. Good thing you're not trans. Yeah. And Destiny wait, does he live in Nebraska now? Or is he still in LA? But these people went a long way away. I'm guessing that they probably got their flight covered. But like what I'm wondering though is like who are you getting with this? Like chat, who is there? Okay. Who is the main audience for this? Like who's actually consuming this? Like, is it like libertarian, like college students that are like watching this online? Are there genuinely like a lot of people at the conference itself? Like, I can't imagine this. This doesn't sound like a very fun conference. They don't seem to have really, like, who is Vaush what is Vaush getting out of this? That's what I don't understand. Like, I thought I guess that this would be this massive conservative audience that he'd get. It doesn't sound like it. Like, chat, I bet if you turn the camera around, we're going to see like 70 people maximum in that audience. That is not enough to get Vaush out to Nashville. That should not be enough to get Vaush or Destiny out to Nashville. Unless there's a huge online audience, I don't see what they're gaining from this.
Affected their ability to participate in democracy?
So, if I may.
I mean, yeah, they must have gotten paid. That's the only... Yeah, you're right. They must have gotten fucking paid for this.
I think that what we are looking at is nothing more than a natural product of economic demographics. When you're poor, and a lot of African American folks are poor, slavery, Jim Crow, a lot of baggage there. When you're poor,
I don't know. I'm so used to not getting any money for anything that I didn't even think of the fact that they might have gotten paid, chat. I'm so used to streaming for free that I'm just like, wait, paid? Wait, what? What?
Or your ability
Chat, I'm a great value streamer. Haven't you heard from Demon Mama?
to take care of a child is severely stunted. Not only that, but your perceived ability. You know, I've known a lot of poor to-be parents who are really anxious about their ability to take care of a kid. Can't fault them for that either. Not to mention education. I know that a lot of folks think it's real easy, but in reality, stuff like proper family planning is positively correlated. The better education you have, and that correlates with your level of income. What we're looking at right now is nothing more than a product of long-standing demographic trends. And if we want to address it, the best way to do it is to address the underlying problem, which is to fix racial income inequality, to make sure we all have free, fair, and equal education. I think that if you do that, pretty much every meaningful disparity between racial groups in this country would disappear.
Anybody want to add to that? Anybody
I'm
wanna add
sorry,
to that?
I wasn't trying to be
I think the
salty.
two big issues that
I wasn't trying to be salty there. I'm not making it easier for you either, chat. I had super chats enabled, and there was some kind of tax shit. There was some kind of tax shit that YouTube wanted me to fill out, and I was moving, and I was living with fucked up people, a lot of fucked up people, and some cool people that play amazing piano too. But yeah, I was you know, I was in a bad place to really be able to get anything done, and now I don't see that. I don't see the thing above my YouTube studio. I'm gonna have to figure out how to do that, chat. I'm gonna have to figure out how to re-enable that stuff. But if you want to give me money, there's Patreon, there's PayPal, there's Stream Elements, and there's Twitch. So those are places you could make me less of a value streamer.
I mentioned at the beginning of this, education and healthcare both.
What good point. What was the thesis of this debate? How did this start out? Does anybody remember? I know that in the very beginning they were like, what are some policy prescriptions that you would, you know, and they each gave their one thing that they think should, you know, how the law should be changed, right? But I don't really remember what the overarching theme of this thing really was. I think it feels very hacked together.
Directly play into this. When kids have good schools to go to, when kids have after-school programs, when kids have extracurriculars, I mean, these are things that they can do besides getting pregnant at early ages. And then when people have access to free or cheap or reduced-cost contraceptives, these are things that people can do to
Survive and win 39 billion. That's right. This is a Squid Game.
have more reproductive control over their lives. I find the phrasing of the question is very odd to me, that we're saying that somebody exercising reproductive control over their body is compromising their ability to participate in our democracy, when I can't think of anything less democratic than not being able to exercise control over your own body.
I'm just saying that it's a lot of babies that could have been voters. That's all.
I mean, it's also a lot of babies that could have been born into single-parent households. It's a lot of children that could have grown up that have gone cycling through the criminal justice system. It's a lot of, like, I don't think that you can force people to have children. Well, at least that's not where we're at in the United States if somebody doesn't want to. Again, as Vaush said, if you want to reduce the abortion rate or of any given community, then reduce the accidental loops pregnancy rate. And whether that's with free or easy access to contraception, or whether that's through better education or job opportunities or whatever, these are all things that we know reduce the rate of people getting pregnant.
So I actually personally advocate for voluntary solutions to things instead of getting the government involved. So I'm not here saying, okay, make abortion illegal and throw everybody in jail. I'm not saying that. But there is an organization that I know of that has a voluntary solution to this, and it's called Let Them Live. And what they do is they go and they find girls who have an abortion scheduled, and they ask them, what are the mitigating factors? What are the reasons that you need to do this? And they help them overcome it. And they choose to have their children. So I mean, there are market solutions to this. So I just
I don't know,
I'm not
delivering
advocating
someone
for it.
up to the point to where they deliver the child and then you kick them out and say, good luck. I don't think that's the best, unless you're seriously telling me that this is an organization that is going to support a mother for the 18 years that it requires to take a child from infant to adult.
No, because that's the welfare state. We just want to help them get on their feet and overcome these obstacles. And people do, like, they'll pay for their entire college education because their whole
College education isn't the problem. The problem is the 18 years before you go to college.
But there's people who go to college. No, I run a memes page, so this is the best you're gonna get.
No, I just want.
Oh my God!
With regards to that, I just want to say
How is that an excuse?
that you know, I think that while it is very possible that you could go up to an expectant mother and give them some arguments that might convince them to stay away from an abortion clinic, I don't necessarily know if you're meaningfully changing any of the systemic problems that led them to that decision in the first place. You know, I mean, that's a pretty emotionally heavy situation. There's a stereotype about Democrats being flippant with it. You know what I mean? In and out like a drive-through. But no, for everyone, it's a pretty serious thing. And if we really want to address this, I mean, look, no matter where you're at, we're all trending towards replacement level population birth anyhow. Every developed country is going to cycle back to around 2 to 2.3 kids per family, because that just seems to be the way developed countries factor in. And when we look at racial disparities in this country, I think that we need to look.
The Japanese show with the school kids, Takeshi was in. Wait, why am I not remembering this? Let's look at. It's an anime, right? They're going on tangents to say talking points that perk the heads of impressionable. Yeah, for them, vaccine talk and whatnot. Yeah, for them, it's all about just like kind of like presenting themselves to a libertarian audience, trying to like low key the fact that they're not libertarians, and just see if any of these low information assholes will sign up for their social media.
At them not as issues of personal responsibility or
A shitposted
moral affront,
panel
but
forum?
rather as
Yeah.
evidence of centuries-old biases that we haven't meaningfully
That
corrected
fits.
for yet. We see this too with crime. Why do you think there is such a strong relationship between poverty and crime? It's not like poor folks just get born with a crime gene or whatever. There are conditions that you're born out into, and a lot of those correlate to not being able to properly take to a child after they're born. Like you pointed out, proper daycare, keep them off the streets. That's a huge thing, especially in neighborhoods with a lot of bad influences. But all of this gets complicated with this moralistic lens, post hoc. It's well, why didn't you just have the kid? Well, that wouldn't have solved any of these issues, really. It would have solved the issue some folks have, but not the issue these families are having, which is that their communities are rotted out due to poor government planning, due to businesses leaving, due to white flight in some of the POC communities. And we can fix those problems, and we can do it in a way that's good for the market too.
So we only have about 5 minutes left, and I'd like to give each of you a minute or so to say anything that you feel has been left out of this conversation, or something you wanted to say to anybody as we wrap up.
A minute to just ramble about whatever we want?
Yeah, sure.
Sure. Here's one thing. Everybody should do their own taxes for at least 2 years because, oh my God, listening to anybody talk about tax or finance absolutely drives me crazy. I don't want to name any names, but I caught a little bit of the last panel here. The fact that poor people pay a tax rate is absolutely not true. Like the bottom 50% of this country gets most of it back in terms of refunds or whatnot. So just as a quick thing, do your taxes for a little bit, learn how they work. The second thing I would say is, besides that point, advocate for things that are politically effective. We all have like our pet dream projects where we want to see the country become, Bernie Sanders is the emperor, we're a socialist empire, or I don't even know what right-leaning people want right now. I have no idea. But like whatever your idealistic fantasy is, that's a cool thing to have.
Was that that was a Mitt Romney take? Destiny just Mitt Romney, didn't he? He low-keyed that, but he was talking about makers and the takers. Remember, Mitt Romney lost the election against Obama in a big part because he had this weird moment where he was like, you got 50% of the population free riders and 50% paying the taxes, right? And like he got killed over that, right? So what Destiny is missing is how expensive it is to be poor. And I know this firsthand. First of all, I'll never be able to buy a home. If I could buy a home, I could use that to build wealth, right? Second of all, if you live in a poor area, things cost more. There's all kinds of examples like this, right? And there's all kinds of sales tax, right? More of your income as a poor person goes to sales tax, things like this. In the end of the day, poor people pay more taxes than we need to. And if you're poor, you know that. If you're poor, you know that.
Have in the back of your head, but advocate for things that are realistic. Calvin said something that I actually completely disagree with earlier, that one person doesn't have that much of an influence. One person on a local level actually has a ton of influence, just not in the really sexy.
Yeah, I mean, like the Pandora Papers just came out. Like the rich are finding all kinds of ways not to pay their taxes.
Cool federal ways we want. If you're the guy that shows up every week or every month at your city council planning meeting, you will be heard. You can actually make a surprising amount of change if you're willing to exercise just a little bit of political power you have on the local level. Just don't always expect that AOC is going to tweet out a congratulations for it.
Oh my God! He knows that he had this.
My only rant is that I believe that taxation is theft, and I'm not saying that as a joke. I actually believe that taxation is theft, and I believe that any government action for the good of humanity also requires force, and I think that things should be voluntary.
It's the cool kind of theft, like Robin Hood. I completely agree. Getting involved at a local level is essential. When I was in university, there was an older woman who was very involved in care for the homeless. In Humboldt County in Northern California, the proportion of homeless people is obscene because they get bussed up there from other cities like LA that don't want to deal with them. And the police, they take down encampment after encampment after encampment. And this lady, I mean, she had a whole life outside of this too, but she dedicated enough time to become the leading representative. I mean, everyone in the scene knew her. And that is the kind of direct civic engagement that's so rare in this country. We're so isolated and so alienated from anything outside of the WrestleMania matches, whatever we see is trending on Twitter, anything that the social media feed bequeaths to us, that we forget. Next to us is our neighbor, a person, and outside their house, across another, and across the breadth of our neighborhood together are probably more people you've seen than you've seen gathered together since the start of the pandemic. There is incredible power in community. And while it's not exactly easy to just rile it up out of nowhere, go to a few local town hall meetings, meet with some local orgs. They exist, and I swear to God, you'll feel way better doing that than you ever will paying attention to national politics with nothing but a once a 4-year vote.
He's thinking of running for office. Did you hear that? That's how a politician talks. Across the breadth of the country. Yeah, no, this is, wow, interesting.
To say for it.
So that actually wraps it up, and I'd like to thank you all for being wonderfully behaved audience. And I didn't know if you wanted to actually say it. I asked you, you're also, oh yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Right, so we spent a lot of time tonight complaining about how bad the media is and how that reflects how bad the general American public is. I've added it probably as just a general problem with humanity. Right, so, and participating in this, I felt a bit bad because I felt like we have exemplified many of the things that we're complaining about. It's not just people in the outside world, it's people in this room. Just the level of passion here, I discourage it. This passion is way too high.
He's been saying he wants to use his donos to start a pack, and that's, does Destiny have a pack? Destiny was talking about that at one point, right?
Don't applaud. No.
The rationale for the attention economy. Oh, I see. I see. So it doesn't matter how much harm Vaush does with his takes.
So much of the problems of politics come down to people being so emotional, so passionate. Part of it is just being associated with a team, but also there's just a personal megalomania.
So Rich, telling a crowd of libertarians that everyone else is out of touch.
I figured everything out, and the world ought to listen to me, and yeah, I've got to control that. I do have that as well, right? And now in all the ways that you can try to improve, as I was saying, the one that I think is most doable on the individual level is betting. So when you hear people saying things that sound ridiculous, try to get them to bet you, right? In some identifiable, verifiable way. Yeah, you were saying that people have not paid you on your Trump bet. That's right, because you have to specify according to what the official certification process says. Yes. Yes. And here's the thing: not when you do this, you become better. You become better because you start before you speak. You think, do I really know that much about this? Am I really qualified? What research have I really done? Have I heard the other side? Do I want to go and say something that is going to make me lose a bet? Right. So it is not just a way of getting other people to be honest, although I have really used it and I feel very
trying so hard to sound like Shapiro.
Effectively, but it's also a way of making oneself honest and improving yourself and trying to actually deserve your sense that other people need to improve.
So we're actually entirely out of time. I'm sorry. Listen, I'm not qualified. I'm just Joe Sixpack.
Entirely out of time.
Don't applaud for me. I'm a terrible moderator.
Wait, who's this?
He doesn't want you to applaud either. But Vaush and Destiny, thank you, everybody.
I've moderated for both of them on many, many, many occasions, so they're all familiar with my rules and my manner.
Okay, so here's Dylan Burns. Wow. This looks even worse than I imagined, okay? So he's starting off like telling us, you know, I've moderated for them on many occasions. All right, so here's what it is. Here's what it is, okay? They're looking for some online political people to do a thing to entertain the poor people that paid $9. And chat, before I said that the $9 ticket, that was probably worth it. I don't know. I don't know how many drinks they're giving you. If it's $9 worth of drinks, then yes, the $9 is worth it, maybe. But what I think this is that they called up Dylan, like, all right, Dylan Burns, what do you do? Well, I run a show called the Hippy Dippy. Okay, can you bring the Hippy Dippy out here? No, I can't run a Hippy Dippy from your libertarian, festival. Oh, okay. What was your best Hippy Dip? Well, I had the championship. Oh, the championship. Okay, that was Vaush versus Bastiat. Okay, can we get them? Yeah, I think we could get them. I think we could get Vaush and Bastiat. Okay, call it Vaush and Bastiat. We just want you to repeat the Hippy Dippy championship for us. Just do that performance, because it wasn't real in the first place. Very little that this guy does is real. Very little that this guy does is genuine. Very little that this guy says does he fucking know enough about to even say. So yeah, let's bring out the Hippy Dippy. Let's bring out the Hippy Dippy. We'll just repeat the championship. We'll just relive Coconut Island. So my expectations for this debate are incredibly low. Because it seems like to me that they are just like repeating, Dylan's like greatest hits of wrestling, of sports entertainment debate.
So I'm sure they'll be able to hold themselves accountable and I won't have to step in and...
Like a kid on the bar stool next to it? Oh my god. Let's not have any goes at Dylan's age, okay? That is the one thing that I don't like, is people like ripping on somebody based on their age. Like, that's... we don't want to gatekeep politics. You don't have to be fucking 21 to, I don't know. That's the one thing that I will not criticize Dylan on at all.
Be the big authoritarian government coming in to stop your freedom-loving people.
Better not, buddy.
Wonderful. Okay. So they're going to be debating whether the socialist model, Vaush's proposed socialist model, or Bastiat's neoliberal shill model is the better one for preserving and perpetuating liberty. Is that correct? Are we all under that understanding? Wonderful.
Like that.
Okay.
I feel like it's really unfortunate that they've got them sitting in booster seats. Listen. Like, I'm going to resist any impulse to,
Okay. So I'm going to give Vaush, the first...
they do look like high chairs, though. They're all on high chairs. Okay?
So I'm going to try to count it down for 2 minutes, so try to keep it short. Then Bastiat, and then we'll have an open session where they can go back and forth.
Can they even
So Vaush,
reach their drinks?
Is this thing on? Nice.
It looks like they'll
First
fall
of
off their
all, hello,
chairs
Nashville.
if they
Nice
try
to
to
meet
reach
you.
their... Like, Mommy, get me my drink.
That doesn't count against my time. The applause doesn't count.
Also,
in my Twitter bio,
why doesn't Dylan get a drink?
home of all political innovation, I call myself a libertarian socialist, which is a term I think many people find contradictory. Libertarianism typically being defined as an opposition to big government, and socialism, well, not so much. But historically and semantically, I think there's a lot of overlap there. And I think that we have a lot more to agree on, non-socialist libertarians and socialist libertarians, especially when we learn or at least seek to understand different types of freedom. There are negative and positive liberties. And when we talk about libertarianism here in the West, I think we often talk about the negative.
Oh, Jesus Christ. I'm surprised he didn't bust this out already. So yeah, there's that. There's the original definition of libertarianism, which is, you know, a creature of the left, right? You know, it's libertarianism began its life as being about, you know, anarchism, essentially, right? As being, you know, related to anarchy, right? And, of course, the right-wingers in, what was it, like the 60s, the 50s? At some point, the right-wingers were like, ooh, libertarian. We could weird champ that. Nobody's using this. Here, let me pick this up.
Freedom.
And so Vaush is trying to, be like, yes, I am a libertarian socialist. And, like, I mean, you know, that probably breaks their, like, there's probably a lot of libertarians out there that as soon as he says libertarian socialist, their heads explode.
From restriction. To mitigate the number of regulations, rules, laws, preventing us from doing that which we want to do. I see this often.
He's a liberal socialist.
In libertarian conventions. I remember...
He's a radical liberal.
That fellow who got booed for suggesting...
He's a radical dude.
You know, licenses to drive. It was a... you know,
radical
remember,
guy. Radical
but positive
bro.
liberty, which is an equally important concept, possibly even more, is the ability to act on your will. And here in the United States, we don't have a lot of positive liberty when we're poor, do we? The freedom to travel, to get good education, to get good health care, to make sure that illnesses aren't debilitating, that we don't lose limbs.
Yeah, it was like a euphemism for
diabetes,
anarchism,
to make sure that we can spend the time that we want, in our leisure time and at work. All of that is gatekept behind economic institutions, which I think in many cases deprive us of freedoms, not by explicitly preventing us from doing these things, but by denying
calling yourself an anarchist is doesn't open a lot of doors for you.
us the chance at doing it. That's why I'm a socialist. And I think that when you think about liberty in that way...
In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if he eschews the socialist label before too long.
30 seconds. I think when you think of liberty in that way, it leads itself naturally to an understanding of socialism, not as an advocacy for big government, but an advocacy for any system. When you...
I mean, honestly, chat, okay, here's my best guess. And I don't know, I haven't done the research, okay? But my best guess on this conference is this. They set up this conference, they didn't seem to have a lot of audience. They didn't feel like this conference was gonna make a lot of, you know, bring a lot of eyeballs in, like, right? They're freaking out. So they get somebody who's got an audience. They are literally renting Dylan's, Vaush's, and Destiny's, and come on, let's be real. Bastiat doesn't have an audience. Bastiat doesn't have an audience. Dylan's, Vaush's, and Destiny's audience are being rented. Bastiat, you're along for the ride.
Used properly, which enhances the extent to which the average citizen can act upon their will, without hurting others, of course. And I guess that's why I don't think the term libertarian socialism is a contradiction.
Dude, don't clap with your mic in your hand, dipshit. Sorry, chat. I gotta be nice. I'm sorry, Bastiat. I didn't mean to call you a dipshit.
Wonderful. So for the next 2 minutes, I'll hand it over to Bastiat.
Hey folks, my name's...
What is Bastiat? There's something about Bastiat. I feel like he belongs on an 80s show. Does he seem 80s to you? There's something about this guy that just, it makes, I feel like he crawled out of the 80s.
Bastiat, I stream on Twitch, and I was very graciously introduced...
Proton called himself a libertarian.
...as a neoliberal shill. I affiliate with some of the good folks at the
I'm sorry.
Liberal Project. You might want to check them out on Twitter sometime. They do a lot of great work. And I appreciate that...
Wait, what did he say? The liberal project? He doesn't mean the liberal fucking, what is that thing called? Liberal Sanity Project? He's not talking about LSF, is he?
Produce kind of where he intersects...
Is he a troll doll hair dye?
...with libertarians, because I feel somewhat similar in my relationship with libertarianism. I appreciate and accept a lot...
I mean, like, listen, I don't know. I'm a streamer too. If I had to appear before an audience, I might not look as good as I look right now, okay? I'll be real. You know? There's a lot more for me to, like, I don't have great clothes, right? You know, right? So I'm not trying to take a shit on these three or anything. But there's something about bringing them into the real world that just makes them look like utter douchebags.
...the basic libertarian morality, but I think that a lot of the policy prescriptions that I propose, which I think are essential to a functioning and free and durable free society, are essential and yet are oftentimes scorned by libertarians of different stripes. For example, I believe, as I think Milton Friedman argued very persuasively, that the government must not only ensure competitive markets, but must ensure the institutions necessary to maintain those competitive markets, some antitrust regulations, for example, and aid to people to alleviate acute misery and distress, to ensure that people feel like they've got hope in a free society and do not turn to alternatives,
Keynesianism,
which I believe are almost always going to be authoritarian in nature, whether they are intended to be so or not. And so, in that sense, I appreciate.
Yeah, this is a weird trifecta to bring in front of a libertarian crowd. There's nobody here that's really gonna rock the libertarian. Like, I mean, I don't know. Other than if Bastiat starts talking about UBI or something, like we might get some like, some of that flavor of libertarian, right? I don't know what's Bastiat's take on that though. Is he in the Yang zone of like, yeah, offer them a UBI but take away their social programs? Is he like
I
big on Keynesianism?
Appreciate that.
Yeah, see, so like
making
Bastiat
that-
would be a great advisor for the wealthy, but understand that he'd be a good advisor for the capitalist class. Okay, that represents very few of us. And so what I'm saying is that the real like political discourse, the real political dialectic to have isn't even between Vaush and Bastiat. It's like, I don't know, like between Vaush and somebody further left, honestly. If we're going to talk about like representing like, most people's interests, right? Like Vaush's solutions are pretty mild, pragmatic, market-based, like if anybody's the conservative in terms of the interest of people, it's Vaush, right? So yeah, Bastiat, get the fuck out of here. Dylan, get the fuck out of here. Vaush, we're gonna have you debate EJ from Non-Compete versus Vaush.
Discussion, making that distinction. One of the things that concerns me, though, about a lot of the variants of socialism that are proposed is that while I appreciate
Vaush on the right, EJ on the left. There we go.
the respect that they have for lessons of history and
Friedman believed in a negative income tax in place of social services. Wouldn't be surprised if that's a kind of wave he's on as a Lulbert.
the experience of socialist experiments in the past, I worry that they ultimately could lead to new forms of central planning and state coercion that are of a nature that, while not intended, are nevertheless very likely.
So too much dim sockery, sock dimmery is dangerous, but a little bit is just right.
Be harmful and to rob us, indeed, not just of the negative liberties, but even some of the positive liberties that we currently enjoy in many free societies, even if, for example, in the United States, there are a lot of ways we'd like to improve upon
Like the ability to get your piss break taken away by Amazon, yeah?
the existing system. So I look forward to talking with Vaush here today.
Wonderful. So now we're going to have an open dialogue. You guys can go back and
Bastiat comparable to European sock dems with less support for unions.
forth. Just one principle I hope you both can live by is that when you both talk at the same time, you actually don't get double the information, you get none of it.
Yeah.
So,
Dylan, you've said that before, and it sounded so much better. That's actually a pretty good thing to tell people. Like that's the one. Like I mean, like not everything Dylan does is cringe. Not everything Dylan does is bad. The sentiment of what he's trying to get across is good. He's a little nervous, so he's not really saying it right. It's not really as impressive as he'd like it to be. But that's a great way to get people to not talk over each other, Dylan. Hey, look at that. Here's me giving Dylan Burns kind of a compliment, saying that most of the time Dylan says that in a way that sounds good and makes sense and is not cringe. So
do your best to be cordial, or I'll have to step in. You two can start interjecting with one another.
Well,
see, chat, did you expect me to just sit here and beat up on Dylan Burns? Listen, I've had enough of that. Okay, I beat him up on WrestleBrania. I beat him up when I exposed his clip chimping, and he admitted that I was right to Xander Hall. So my business with Dylan, I will consider that concluded. I'm not going to beat up on Dylan anymore, okay?
so I guess one of
Unless he deserves it. Unless he does something to deserve it, chat.
the things that concerns me about a lot of libertarian socialism is that it seems like you would nevertheless need a lot of the institutions that we might ordinarily refer to as central planning in order to make the system work. For example, it seems to me that if you had a society of broad-based democratic workplaces, presumably that's kind of what we would imagine to be the basic unit of production in a libertarian socialist kind of society, right? If we have a system like that, I think we run into a big problem with the issue of capital investment, because it seems like we're no longer going to have trillions in private investment come down from Wall Street. We're going to need some way to ensure that these democratic workplaces can get investment and can do so in a way that comports with more socialist principles and the sort of capitalist private ownership that we have today. And it seems like what you would get, however you did it, would have to be done through government in some kind of fashion that could not help but amount to central planning by another name. It wouldn't be the same kind of central planning that we've seen in socialist societies in the past.
Wait,
where
can we just
you
do
decide
this,
how many
chat?
pairs of
Let me
shoes
try
are
this.
built
Let me
for,
try this.
what are assembled for what
See,
kind
there's
of plan.
their feed.
But it would
Okay, so we got
nevertheless
their feed in
determine,
there.
for political purposes rather than for the purposes of investing efficiency, what kind of entities are favored by the state and which are disfavored by the state. And that seems to me like something that could endanger a lot of our freedom. It would be very difficult, for example, to criticize your local government if your local government determines, whether you're going to get any investment, whether you're going to be able to make your payroll, things like that. So I guess that's kind of my first concern.
Is that better?
Like some of the positive liberties that we enjoy in advanced democracies.
We don't really need to see how far above the ground they are.
Depends on a private.
I also, like, what the fuck? Can somebody explain these seats to me? Like, why did they give them high chairs? Are they trying to make fun of these guys? Are they trying to make them look like babies? What are they doing? I don't understand.
A plan that reduces efficiency and makes us less free.
I feel like if you're gonna do this, at least pan the camera up, like go from the knee up or something, so that you can't tell that's what's happening. I don't really understand.
Through the course of some of the potential loss of political freedom I highlighted here, I worry that we've sort of got some bad results out of good intentions.
So I'd like to tackle that if I may. First of all, to clarify, I identify as a market socialist. So I don't think that the experiments of the Soviet Union and, say, for example, Mao's China were a particularly phenomenal demonstration of socialist principles. I think that worker cooperatives, when businesses are owned collectively by the people who work there, are a good and ethical system for organizing labor. You bring up an interesting point, though, because capital investment is going to be a necessary component of any kind of market system. You do need higher institutions choosing where money goes. And I think to an extent you're assigning an undue level of potential malevolence to the government in these cases. If you had a system where worker cooperatives look towards the government for investment, it could be as decentralized or as removed from political influence as many of the systems that work in the government today. For example, the PPP system we got during the beginning of COVID, the government wasn't like selectively denying like some businesses they didn't like. It's just a broad bureaucratic structure that we can universally rely on. Even
they should have at least given them a step ladder, and each one should have a megaphone.
Washington don't like us, and it strikes me
Are
as
they all
hypocritical
short
as well
kings?
because
Listen,
today
I don't know. I don't know anything about. No. There's not all short kings. Vaush is over 6 foot. Dylan is over 6 foot, I think. I don't know about Bastiat, but yeah, I don't think they're short kings necessarily. Are they?
Banks don't loan money to cooperative ventures, at least not as often as traditional firms. Cooperatives, what I care about, are generally shafted by traditional banking loans because they're considered scary out there, in spite of the fact that cooperatives actually have a higher return on initial investment because they tend to be more stable. They resist price shocks. So we live today in a system where political biases influence which types of
Too bad there were a example of market socialism, Vaush.
Economic organizations get up off the ground. And even if you leave that aside, even if you were able to universally delegate loans to everyone in a private system, the problem remains that the private system is not exactly impartial with which businesses rise and fall. Private ownership and the benefits it accrues also lead to things like monopolization, which just directly strangles out competition, either in a local market or sometimes globally, depending on how much influence they have. These are problems directly linked to systems of private ownership because the incentive structures in those systems don't really exist, at least not in the same way in cooperatives. At the end of the day, when we're talking about capital...
They all look short here. Maybe Peter Jackson was the director.
You're always deferring to a higher power. The question is, will that higher power be democratic, or will it be an elite autocracy of banks and venture capital firms that have no obligation to the public good whatsoever, not even nominally? And I would choose the former.
So there are two things I'd like to ask about that. One, the smaller issue, I would say smaller, at least for our discussion, of the issue of cooperative investment, and then the bigger issue of the democratic nature of the system and the malevolence or lack thereof of government. So I just mentioned that because I don't want to lose both of those, but I think they're both interesting points you bring up. So with respect to cooperatives, you made an interesting argument when you said they have a high rate of return, and yet banks and investors typically don't invest.
There we go. Now they're all short.
All the research I've seen, I have no, and I really wouldn't
And
purport to make an argument against cooperatives as they exist today in the United States or in other advanced developed countries.
All you want to do is see me turn into a giant woman.
Economically, they seem to be about the same, not much better, not much worse than any other form of institution, with the exception of their maintenance of employees, in the sense that they're less likely to fire or lay off employees, and more likely to say take a haircut. Giant woman. That seems to be what I've seen in terms of the biggest difference. I wasn't aware that they had high rates of return, but let's assume that they, I'll range to that point. Why then, in a capitalist system that often regularly funds people and interests that are politically opposed to it, I imagine folks have seen the thrilling discourse about some, the socialist houses and income and all that, right? They were able to participate in the system.
Oh my God, he thinks it's such an own. Like, I'm not even gonna mention it, but his son's making a lot of money.
Reason then that these banks would deny investment to entities that offer a lucrative rate of return.
At the end of the day, I think it
Thank you for ruining Lord of the Rings.
comes down to limited information. I don't think that the bankers are like malicious, ideologically driven. I don't think they're like going about it like that. But back during the the Jim Crow era, even though it was perfectly legal to serve people of any race.
Now I have to imagine Lord of the Rings with Dylan as Frodo. Okay. Wait. Okay. So wait. And who is Vaush Samwise?
Oftentimes businesses
Is that how
would
that
not.
works?
And that's an economically inefficient decision. You can make the argument you're playing to
baby
social
time.
biases, but at the end of the day,
Baby
you're objectively
time.
limiting a market. You see that too with like Legos marketing more to boys in the 90s, computer stuff as well. I mean, you're limiting the share of the market. I think that at the end of the day, these systems, as much as we'd like to believe that they're above our petty concerns, are ultimately the product of a lot of systemic biases.
What did you miss? Did you see the end of the shit show with the moderator? We switched over to Bastiat versus Vaush. They're just repeating the Hippy Dippy Championship from like February or March or whenever the hell it was, right? This is just basically the same thing over and again.
Get ingrained and codified, and cooperatives are just not very well understood in this country.
Oh
Which is a shame.
yeah.
They're growing.
Good
There
point,
are
Dragon.
more cooperatives today in America than there have been in a long time, and an interest in them is rising, which makes sense because we live in an era of unprecedented worker discontent, at least since the Great Depression. And worker cooperatives have a very, 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 very great difference in how people who work there feel, their general level of happiness. It makes sense that it would be rising up in these times.
Yeah, I would say that I would agree with the argument.
Oh my god, it was very, very cringe. Yes, the cringe, much cringe was.
That seems to be from my research, what I found too is that.
What was the worst part? The oh my god. Like, there was so much wrong with it, right? Like, they started talking about how the need for greater, like, news source vetting and kind of like making sure that stuff that's going around on social media is actually true, right? And then their libertarian friend was like, well, but if you're conservative, aren't you gonna feel like this is all set against you? All the content warnings are going against you. That's like you're gonna feel it's gonna feed into conspiracy theories, right? And what he's missing is the fact that the whole existence of the conservative viewpoint as a viable take in this country rests fully on the foundation of AstroTurf. In this country, the rich have cultivated an anti-intellectual base, have tried to make it uncool to be an intellectual, cool to be anti-intellectual, have basically created a whole class of people that just like not only do they not know what's going on, but they don't trust anybody who'd be able to tell them, right? And so as a result, our discourse is jaundiced. Our discourse is altered. Our discourse is shifted to the right. And it's not even a real right because there's no facts there. There's no anything behind it. So yes, of course, the content warnings are going to cut against people who have rejected reality. That I don't know how to avoid that, right? Either you just like let people say that maybe Trump's election, maybe the election was not what it, you're either going to let them say that shit, or you're gonna smack the My Pillow guy across the face, with with some kind of a content warning.
There's a lack of awareness among a lot of the people.
You're drinking seawater?
Who I guess kind of grease the wheels of capitalism.
Yeah. Rather than coconut.
Himself and accountants and
so I'm guessing we'll get some kind of reprise of Coconut Island. I don't know. Maybe Bastiat has an answer for Coconut Island this time.
Just don't generally work with these forms of organizations. So I would say that also to me seems to be one reason that they're not more popular. I've also seen occasionally in regulation where they are occasionally disadvantaged in some way. The USDA does aid to rural enterprises, and they will provide very loan opportunities with very low collateralization. And other entities in government, like the Small Business Association, their collateralization requirements are higher, and so the low collateral is good for a cooperative because they can't really do a corporate guarantee that requires somebody to basically sign off. There's not some big rich angel investor, and that makes the guarantee a little harder. So there are some issues, but they seem to be issues that we're working on. The Paycheck Protection Program was pretty open to cooperatives, for example. So that it seems like we are kind of ironing those issues out. But I agree, there's a lot of information asymmetry there. And then the bigger issue of malevolence is something I want to talk about, because I don't believe necessarily that government is inherently malevolent. What I was thinking about in terms of government is that right now, under our system, there is an incredible amount of lobbying and influence in government to get all the kinds of special or favorable, even really, treatment. I don't mean to make it sound malicious. It's favorable treatment in our tax code or in the law for one particular business.
Is it just me, or do we still have some slow talkers here? Should I turn it up a little bit more?
Enterprise or another. And then I imagine
kind of
that on top of
talkers.
taxes, which are a relatively small part of overall business, you have to lobby the government, as anybody would, assuming they have the right to, for access to capital investment, or greater access to it, or special access, to say, well, perhaps I'm not as profitable. I provide a useful social fund. One thing in particular that concerns me is the example of Yugoslavia, where they had capital investment that was devoted specifically to firms that had large numbers of employees, whether they were efficient or not. It became a kind of backhanded subsidy for laborers. The entire economy is dragged down by this, and I don't see a reason why here in the United States, where our own policies often favor entities with lots of employees over entities that are efficient or innovative, would really be any different. I just imagine that, like every other country in the world, lobbyists would kind of make the process less economically efficient than the competitive rules of a capitalist order do, however imperfectly.
So they'd love to talk about, yeah, the opinions of low information voters when those concur. Well, listen, it's not an accident. They don't just like happen. Oh, it happens to be that there's some low information voters out here, and their takes are very useful to us rich people, right? It's more than that. It's that Americans have been socially engineered to be more anti-intellectual than almost any other country. I don't know, like I haven't been to every country, I don't know every culture, so I could be wrong, but like I think, you know, from having traveled a little bit abroad, I noticed that we're probably the least intellectually curious people of any nationality that I hung out with. So yeah.
It's
and it's not. I don't think it's on accident. I think they've cultivated this. I think they need this. I think they like this. I think that they could, like, that you got 50% of the population at any time that you can just lie to. You can just lie to, and as long as you phrase it in and prime them in the sort of, you know, cultural milieu that they identify with, they'll accept it.
Those things where the fish probably couldn't define water if you asked them what it was, you know? We have a horrendously inefficient system for determining which businesses are efficient right now. Businesses close constantly.
When the feeling doesn't affect their sensibilities or disposition, their irrational should be left at the door of a logical debate. But if their demographic is insulted, offended, or uncomfortable, they are reasonable feelings.
Most don't survive the first couple of years. And especially, I mean, in the restaurant industry, for example, which is eternally going to be in high demand, it's the sink or swim model doesn't take into account the externalities, because every sink is loans to the bank met unfulfilled, is a family's finances left in devastation, is all the external problems following from that. And this happens every year
very
to
conscious,
hundreds of thousands of
very
people,
conscious effort,
not just
yeah.
here, but all around the world. When we look at other systems, we often see their downsides,
It's embarrassing.
of which there are no doubt many with.
It's kind of embarrassing to be an American, and that, you know, to like always have to be like, yes, I know.
Any.
Like so many times when I'm talking to somebody from another country, they're just incredulous at what goes on in the United States. But really, they think this, and like, yeah, they think that. No, they believe that. No, they're absolute. No, they don't see that. They don't know what Trump's actual track record as a businessman was. They just know that he has had master businessman as part of his, you know, branding. That's you know, and you'll even get this from left wingers, like, oh, but no, isn't he actually like really good? No, but he wouldn't be so rich if he wasn't smart, right? He's a little bit smart. He's a little bit good at business, and it's like, no, he's not a little bit good at business. He's not a little bit smart. He is literally somebody that got a silver spoon shoved up his butt from a very early age. And really, like, if you or I had been given the money that Trump had been given, we'd probably be more wealthy than he is. He hasn't done well. He's underperformed. His only saving grace is basically his social class and his parentage, right?
But we're so sometimes, I think, unwilling to consider what they're being compared to. When we're talking about accruing investment from
the feeling that vaccine is bad versus the feeling abortion should be pro-abortion, that
from the government, regardless of how that's done. For example, over in Canada, I know they have a very robust arts investment program. The game Cuphead, if anyone's played, that's good, was largely funded through investment from the Canadian government. They see worthy artistic projects and they put money into it. It seems to produce good results.
Really?
Not universally applicable.
Actually, I didn't know that.
To all businesses, but I think it speaks to an alternative model, maybe something that we could dip our toes into. Even if the business,
he's a fantasy of a businessman, not a real one. Yeah.
Even if the government were just to loan out to the best applicants.
The sad thing about Trump is you kind of have to be dumber than Trump to believe his bullshit, and half of us are.
It's within like counties per. I think that might actually lead to a better system than we have right now, because I find it difficult to imagine any system which would produce as much abject misery as the one we have now, where all the failed business ventures get shuffled under by the new real estate and they never get thought of or considered again. Especially, you know, since with regards
real
to
estate is a joke of
all
an
those failed
industry.
ventures.
Yeah,
I mean, we're not just talking about like the failure of the business of the family's finances. We're talking about lost time in real estate, like constant turnover in areas with a lot of economic upturn. Stuff like this can be economically devastating, especially to small towns. And these externalities get shuffled off, like how big box stores and Walmart, you know, everything costs less there. Then why is it that when they move into mid-sized towns, everyone there gets poorer? It's a very strange economic problem, and I think it requires out-of-the-box solutions to even begin to address it.
I think there's some interesting points there. One, I feel like actually the example of Canada and the way that it has decided to fund media and art is an example of kind of the problem that I highlighted.
And Dylan's like almost vestigial here. Like, right, there's not a huge role for him in the hippy dippy panel, right? You know, I mean, he does like, I mean, like I said, the thing that he says about like, listen, when all like, it's supposed to go something like this. Chat, let me see if I can do this. All right, I want to illustrate a very special point to you. Now, I know you might feel like when all of us talk at the same time, you get like 5 times the information, but in reality, no one can hear us when we're talking over each other. So instead of getting 5 times the information, you get 0 information. So don't do it, right? That's what it's supposed to go like. That's what he was trying to do earlier. But yeah, he didn't quite do that. He's vestigial. He's like kind of just he's just like there's no, like, I mean, he said, like, literally you do not need Dylan here. It's unless you just want to like kind of like LARP the hippy dippy championship. Like, that's the only reason that he's here, is because he was part of that, and I guess they're gonna rerun it.
Canada makes special privilege for...
They don't have any of their own content that's compelling for anybody, so they're gonna buy Dylan's
Canadian content. They feel, being a nation of 30 million on the board with a nation of 330 million, that they have to give Canadian-based content, Canadian movies and film, a lot of special attention. And so they have, under the Trudeau administration, proposed a system of increased taxation of entities like Netflix and Hulu and things like that, making costs...
He started building his counter-reality field in the 80s. No one ever took him seriously enough to stop him because like for him, a lot of it was probably just, okay, so if you don't understand, what is Trump's business model, modern day? Well, I mean, obviously The Apprentice, probably made a pretty decent amount of money from The Apprentice, right? But really, The Apprentice goes to serve the other function that he performs, which is selling his name and his branding to companies that want to name their tower or their building or some piece of real estate. They want to name it the Trump building. They want to, like, we got a Trump building, right? And you can buy it from him. You can buy his branding, you can buy his logo, you can buy all that stuff, and you can say, we got it's the Trump building, right? And it's like literally just because people think, oh, Trump, that means really expensive, that means really nice, that means really, oh, Trump, oh, that's like, it just, you can charge more. If it's called Trump, you can charge more. That is the totality, or not totality, that is the majority of what business like Trump has been doing more recently, right? Is just selling his brand. And that's almost all that he has. There is nothing underneath it, right?
Much greater for the average person for the purpose of
licensing his name, yeah.
Canadian content that most Canadians don't watch, don't particularly want, or have any special interest in. Nevertheless, the Canadian content is very popular with special interests who are able to use their leverage in the government to ultimately get themselves special favors that are popular in the abstract, even though they cost a lot in the ordinary sense to ordinary Canadians. But it's also kind of a death by a thousand cut thing, right? Because you pay $5 more or something for an online subscription. Maybe that doesn't feel too bad. But in the aggregate, that's a lot of waste in exchange for a benefit that you just won't enjoy. And then you imagine that kind of stuff happening across every sector. Instead of the special sectors, they're able to capture state favors in our liberal democratic system. So that's one point I'd raise. That's kind of an example to me of some things I fear happening across all industries. But another point that Vaush mentioned, I think is a very important point that you mentioned, I think it's a very good point, is the fact that a lot of businesses will fail. I think you said it was like how many, on average?
I think that it's like a nearly 2/3 rate.
Yeah. The other thing that they're not realizing is that Dylan, part of what they're trying to buy is the yelling. Part of what they're trying to buy is the drama. And I don't think you brought them any of the yelling. I don't think you brought them any of the drama. You brought them the most boring part of the hippy dippy, right? And the only reason you were able to sell this as a Twitch stream was because of the perception of this being some kind of a championship, some kind of a battle for the prestige and the like bragging rights, right? And with this crowd, they don't know shit about Twitch, they don't know shit about Bastiat or Vaush. You're not really giving them the value that the original Hippy Dippy Championship offered, and I say value with like air quotes that I'm too lazy to even do, right? I'm too lazy to do my air quotes. That's how valueless this supposed value really is, right?
Yeah, I've heard numbers like that too, and I think it's important to note that there are a couple of things to consider, and this is where I would especially hope that a lot of libertarians are open to what it is I'm about to say. So for me, as a good neoliberal shill, I really like trade. I think free trade has been a blessing and a boon for the United States, and indeed,
it's a meeting of two intellectual heavyweights.
For I'd say the whole world, but especially the United States, as being the original globalist country that is most responsible, I think, for defining the terms of the international economic order as we enjoy today. Well, unfortunately, trade, though I think it benefits more people in society in the aggregate, does come with costs. The North American Free Trade Agreement, our opening of trade relations with China, have led to massive benefits for most, but they've been small and broadly dispersed across society for everybody. Right? Massive benefit for society, but broadly dispersed. The pain that has resulted, on the other hand, from these free trade agreements in the sense of closed factories, lost jobs, has been much smaller in the aggregate, but that pain is much more noticeable, much more severe on the individual level, and it's much more visible, and it's much easier to craft a political narrative on. Because if I tell you, yes, well, my television set is now 33% cheaper, and I can have a much bigger one, or all the rest of it, that's great, yeah, who cares, really? I mean, I got my TV, you don't care about that. On the other hand, somebody tells you about how their town has been hollowed out, they got a fentanyl addiction, they got all these crumbling factories, and things used to be, oh, so much better back in the good old days. Well, maybe not for society as a whole, but for them, Obviously so. And so we've got to have a society that is more ready to to help people who are in distress, because it's essential we do this, because if we don't, we risk losing the benefits that come with things like free trade or business turnover. When businesses are destroyed, that doesn't have to mean the end of the road for the people who lose their jobs or the people who lose their business. Indeed, one of the great things about forming a corporation is that it's limited liability for you as an individual. You have a chance to start over. You don't have to lose a shirt on your back, you know? If we can work to increase some of the benefits that we give to people who maybe lose their jobs as a result of trade, we have some basic income guarantees, universal health insurance, some of the things that folks in not just European countries, but some of our peer countries in Taiwan take care of. We don't have to worry about the political blowback that understandably results when people feel like they have lost out in a system that may be benefiting people in the aggregate, but for them individually, well, you know, their life maybe is worse. So we got to, instead of telling people, hey, look, you got to be happy where you're at on principle. No, you got to provide for people in some capacity, because if we don't, the lessons of the 20th century seem to be pretty clear that people will look to worse alternatives.
This is so boring.
If there's one thing on which I'll unambiguously agree with any neoliberal shill, it's this.
Chat, I'm going to put...
I don't think trade and people should flow across borders however they please.
I'm going to put the link to the Twitter
and to that end,
thread
there is an undeniable good which has been produced from the modern global economy. I will not bemoan the decrease in tech prices over the past 30 years.
Hopefully it will actually go in.
We're starting up. But sometimes there are root issues that run a little bit deeper than that. It's true that our modern economic system does lead to further wealth accumulation in certain areas. Obviously, more wealth occurs in cities. You know, some towns get hollowed out, as you said. A lot of these towns get big box stores, and again, everything is cheaper. And all of a sudden, folks that couldn't afford any of this weird stuff
go over and give that
with what might have been considered luxury goods 20 or 30 years ago. I think that's a lovely thing. But there are problems.
And yeah, like and subscribe.
Right. From the transportation networks that we've built, not only in our cities, to the areas around them, that's led to the death of walkable American cities. Something we used to have, by the way, back before the invention of the car, when car lobbyists used their corporate power to lobby and bulldoze and repave major American cities to make them inaccessible to human beings, but accessible to metal boxes we drive, to perhaps more pointedly, the death of local small business. The prices at small businesses that you'll go to at any local market, in Seattle we have Pike Place, where things are maybe a little pricier than what you get at a big box store, but everyone goes there. It's very popular. The reason for that is because no business open there can be a chain. It must be one of its kind. The first Starbucks was open there. Now that's a chain, of course, but at the time that was the very first one. People like local, livable communities. They correspond positively with decreases in depression and suicide, to increases in local community involvement, to greater degrees of health. Now, why am I bringing all this up when we're talking about broader economic systems? Well, to me, what we're seeing with worker cooperatives in their modern resurgence here in America is a revitalization of the local community and business spirit that used to make some of the parts of this country so great to live in, where cooperatives, which tend to be a little bit smaller, a little more local, are now filling a long unmet desire, and that is to know the person who works there when you go in. What many people now enjoy with bartenders and restaurant patrons used to be a common thing in stores all across the country. Everything has been so systematized, globalized. Employees shuffle in and out. They get dropped and brought in. Worker turnover was so high in a job that I had before I went on YouTube that sometimes they actually wouldn't bother training some employees because they were put on for less than 2 months. Not hired for that length of time. They were expected to leave before then. So it was just a dice roll, I suppose, and they weren't wrong half the time. All of this can be directly all this can be directly brought back to the system of ownership that we live in today, a system which deprioritizes the needs of workers, not just at their expense, but at everyone's, because the common American worker benefits not from private ownership when at their workplace. Do they benefit from it when they're not? Goods have been a little cheaper, maybe due to global trade, and I think that's an appreciable thing. Maybe we can keep some elements of that broader system, the cost-saving measures, while maintaining a direct democratic relationship with the institutions we spend most of our time at. I don't interact with my government day in and day out. I vote once every 4 years, and every once in a while something drives me to the DMV. When I worked, I spent 8 hours a day there. That's the system I spent most of my time under, and that's the system I had no control over, not directly or indirectly.
So there are a couple things.
Anybody know what Vaush's what was Vaush's job?
I'd say about that, because I think Vaush again makes a lot of insightful observations that I broadly agree with in terms of the problems he describes. What I don't agree with are the prescriptions he suggests. So I think the first thing I'd say is that with respect to the idea
Vaush is so much nicer to libertarians than MLs. He's trying to get these people in his audience, right? And the more shithead low information, like, frat bro jackasses he gets in there, the less he's held accountable. That's what Vaush is. That's what Vaush is, going for here, right?
Of the worker. I think it's first of all important.
Just like the wealthy in our country, he benefits from a low information audience.
To recognize before we reshuffle society around in a very big way around the interests of the worker, we recognize that here in the United States, the workforce participation rate is about 60%, and it's been falling for years. So before we think about that, it's also important to recognize what this means for all the other people in society, the other 40% of people. And it's my basic contention that a society organized around democratic workplaces would be less efficient as a result of the capital markets problem I described earlier, and would therefore be less able to fund the decommodification of all these services I mentioned, healthcare, education, things like that. If we don't have the golden goose that puts out the golden eggs, it's real hard to pay for these kinds of programs. And it's my opinion that we don't want to make that shift unless we recognize that, perhaps we might come to the conclusion as a society that there are higher values that are more important than that economic loss, I would argue, would occur. But nevertheless, I think we have to reconcile with it and the fact that it would come at the cost of society as a whole. So that's one point I'd say there. I think that the worker's interest is not necessarily served by a democratic workplace or a society of democratic workplaces, because while I would agree that in an individual sense, in our existing society, if you want to have a democratic cooperative, you ought to be able to do that, and I can understand there being a lot of benefits. But if we have a society entirely organized around that principle, I think that means some big changes that are very different and very difficult to reconcile with. So that's one point I'd say. The other point I'd say is I think Vaush makes a very good point that society has changed in some very big ways. Like, for example, I wouldn't agree necessarily with all the contours of the General Motors story you told. I would agree with some of it. That lobbyists have certainly had a massive role in transforming America from the kind of, the sort of small town type of environment you described.
Unfortunate placement of the logo between Vaush's legs. Wait, what does it look like?
A society of big highways and cars. Now, a huge part of that is also that
very
much about their cars. I think these products have been caught on for.
Did Vaush eat some spicy food?
More than just malicious intent. But either way, the destroying of whole communities to build 7-lane superhighways was a decision that went well beyond just market demand. man. I mean, there was a lot of political choice there. And I think it's also worth noting that a lot of those decisions were made democratically at the expense of vulnerable minorities.
The more he talks about poor black people and their problems, not exactly talking about solutions, but problems, the more these new viewers will assume he's a fair guy and protect him from criticism. That's what he wants. That's what he wants. And honestly, the libertarians are probably moldable. Let's be real. If you take libertarianism seriously, you are low information. Like, you just, like, you know, either you want to smoke weed and you think that this is the party that lets you smoke weed, or you you know, you think it's about freedom, or, you know, you believe in the lies of the American capitalistic system and its propaganda, which is pretty old school. That's like almost a boomer zoomer that you know, that represents, right? And so I think that Vaush will be able to mold his libertarian gains into, you know, like libertarian socialists. Like, they're not going to even notice the difference, honestly. But yeah, they're going to be reactionary. They're going to be mostly white, and they're not going to push him. They're not going to hold him accountable, and they're going to actively push against those who try to do that. So, and that's what Vaush wants. He wants more flack. More flack for when he shits on somebody like Professor Flowers that actually knows her shit, that comes to talk about something serious, and he just pushes her into the third rail for the, you know, the antipathy, let's just say, that Vaush's audience has to someone like Professor Flowers, right?
Who really couldn't do much about them. In my community, for example, in Pensacola, a giant freeway
Hot
built
chicken
right
is
through the
so
middle of the black
good.
community. And there's a little sign that commemorates this loss. And this loss was the result of a democratically elected government operating in accordance with democratic principles. This is in 1975. It was still imperfect at the time, but even if all the people had all the voting rights, they would have been outvoted. Unfortunately, I don't know that the result would have been much different if we didn't have the kind of modern
Nashville,
appreciation that
wait,
we
is
have.
this true? Nashville is known for spicy fried chicken
Small communities and for
country music.
recognizing
Opryland is
all the
there.
damage that cars do.
I wonder
There's
if
one other point to
Vaush, are you gonna go visit Opryland?
remember here, that with respect to the loss of small town America in some ways, and not to oversimplify
The
what
Grand Ole Opry.
you're saying, but you know, some of what you mentioned there. One of the biggest problems, I think, in America is that we have what I might call, for lack of a better term, I don't mean this as an insult, boomer socialism is what the Wall Street Journal calls it. And that's the practice of taking housing, for example, and making it very difficult to build new housing for the sake of preserving the land values at the expense of perhaps the property rights of the people who own existing homeowners, making it very difficult to build dense housing, making it very difficult to build small commercial enterprises, because this whole system has made it very difficult to rent them at affordable prices, and so you end up with big box stores, which are, I would agree, although I do like me a good 3 a.m. trip to Walmart, which I would agree are a little less aesthetically pleasing and come with their own costs, though I, of course, wouldn't argue against their benefits. It's worth noting that housing, healthcare in this country, which we've got the worst of all systems. We don't have a free market system, and we don't have a universal system. We have a half-universal jury-rigged system that provides universal healthcare of a sort to everybody over 65 and to people who are very poor until you get to that point. And in the middle, good luck, you know. So we got the worst of that because we've got now, we spend as much as many countries per capita in terms of healthcare coverage, sometimes very much more, and we get very...
There is a real problem, yeah, that, like, you know, it is, things got better if you're really poor. You know, you might have healthcare for the first time in your life, which, hey, listen, I'm there. Chat, do you understand something? Listen, let me tell you a little bit about my story. I don't think I've ever talked about this before. But, like, before I got, Obamacare, right, I had a real health problem. I got a real, and I didn't even know what it was, right? Because, like, all I knew was that I had joints that were flaring up, one of my eyes I couldn't see out of. I didn't know if it was related. Did I break my ankle and now it's hard to walk and so all my joints are swollen maybe? I didn't know what happened. And so I go to the free clinic and they tell me, listen, we don't know what happened either. You got to rule out a break because you could have broken your ankle. You know, there's some chance that you broke your ankle. We got to rule that out first, and we can't treat you until we do. Well, what do I do to rule it out? Well, you go, you get a x-ray. Okay, can I get an x-ray here? No, you can't get an x-ray. This is the free clinic. We don't offer x-rays. But what you can do is you can petition one of the hospitals for an x-ray. And they might get back to you in like a month. I didn't get treated for that. And what that was a severe autoimmune attack. And so, yeah, for people like me, I'm very thankful to have the Medicaid expansion. It's life-saving for me. It's a huge difference in terms of, like, you know, getting paid for my HRT and all the rest of it. Like, yeah, it's a huge fucking difference. So I'm not gonna downplay that, but Bastiat is right in that we don't do a lot for people who don't qualify for that. That there's a gap there that a lot of people fall into.
much less for it. We spend very much more for housing and we get very much less for it. And then we have the same problem with education, though I would argue that's less of a problem given that even when you go through that whole process, you're still going to have a higher earning potential. But nevertheless, those three areas, housing, healthcare, and education, the costs have driven through the roof because primarily of bad policy. We know that's the case because with other sectors, consumer goods of all sorts, food, electronics, clothing, prices have gone down, where government policy has been less onerous and less destructive to society as a whole. So it's worth remembering that if we want to live in a free society, we have to reconcile ourselves with the fact that we in the 20th century gave up a lot of freedom, and when we gave it up, we often did it in malicious, race-based ways that now we're having to pay the cost of as a society because they were so poorly implemented in the first place. So when we sacrifice some of our freedom, for example, in the universal healthcare system, we ought to do, or with government payments for healthcare, we got to look at better models here because the way we do it now is a disaster, right? It costs a lot, it delivers very little. We have the same problem with housing. Got to make it.
Yeah, I don't think that reintroducing more capitalism to healthcare is the answer.
It's easier for people to get the services that they want to get, easier for people to have freedom to build where they choose and build what they choose. And when we're going to have a government program, we've got to look to what other countries have done to design them better, to be more efficient, more effective, so we get better results for everybody in this country.
I mean, is it too spicy of a take to say that we should start with the basics, the necessities, and make those free, and make those universal, and yeah, to the point where, yeah, I think that the rich probably have it too good as far as healthcare, right? I think that's true. I think that the rich get, kind of a Cadillac healthcare that is incredibly wasteful, and that the rest of our, that basically your economic status should not have any bearing on your medical treatment, and it should not have any bearing on your medical outcomes.
There's a theme.
We're a long way away from that.
In the contention that I see here, and I think perhaps two, but one of which I'd like to address first, which is the idea that the democratization of the workplace would conflict with our dreams of progress, because progress is important, not just in the capitalistic sense of infinite.
Union workers get Cadillac healthcare. Yeah, that is. The bougies have Rolls-Royce healthcare. Yeah, that is true. That is where that phrase comes from. Although I don't know like what unions are doing. So a lot of those like really sweet sets of benefits, they got like what is the word for this? Basically, the old people that worked those jobs that are retired now, they got those benefits, and then the new hires don't get the benefits, right? Unions have really fucked over their employees in a big way. The union leadership has been, way too close to the management, and the results speak for themselves. I mean, they are in a weaker spot. They don't have the prestige. They don't have, the numbers. They've had a lot of laws. They've had the Democrats kind of stabbed the unions in the back in a lot of ways, right? Like Obama was supposed to help out Wisconsin if it ever came down to a strike, like the way under Scott Walker. Obama said he'd be down there with his soft shoes, ready to help get some attention to that, but he never did that. So yeah, they've been fucked over. Why do the wealthy get to talk about what we should do about disparity? Good question, especially if they aren't using even a portion of the funds for those solutions. Also, American unions have a history of being very reactionary, very racist. It's a struggle that needs to be considered, and I think the DSA tried to run away from that too much.
GDP growth or whatever, but as a concept, as a species, I do believe there's always a better society on the horizon, and there is
the longshoreman is a good example of it. Yeah, that's an IWW connected union, if I'm not mistaken, that I've always been yes.
Unfortunate tendency, even among progressives, to sometimes devolve into a sort of myopic worship of the way things used to be. I want to be clear. My dreamy small-town America speech there, it's not about bringing back the way things used to be. Things are better now than they used to be, in almost every measurable sense. I would struggle to find significant ways in which they are not. But there are elements of the past that we could have brought into the future that we didn't, either because we chose not to, or because the choice was made for us. With regards to the car thing, for example, I don't think that this was some malicious effort on the part of some demographic of American citizens to build out their own wealth. I think that in some ways we traded civil society for dreams of a better and more progressive future. I see this in a lot of ways, where we're unwilling to adhere to certain civilization building principles if it feels like there is an aesthetically more futuristic, but in practice much worse system. What I said earlier about the roads, from the Roman Empire until the 20th century, roads were a place where human beings walked. There were horse-drawn carriages, and even early on with cars, still humans walked. But then we were told to look both ways before crossing the road, an implicit suggestion that it's our responsibility not to get hit. I know what you're thinking, with the cars. Of course, we need to be careful with roads. Cars nowadays, there are many, many times more, but even if you look towards Denmark or the Netherlands, their public transportation systems are light years ahead of ours, which are more socially efficient because it means fewer people have to spend money on cars and car maintenance, which cost the average American about $9,000 a year, a significant portion of a person's paycheck, especially at a median income. It means that there's a gatekeep between accessibility to certain social services, depending on whether you're wealthy or poor. Poor people in cities who don't have cars here in America
He accidentally sounds like a USSR sympathizer sometimes.
Shafted beyond belief. They might as well just go ahead and walk out and find some desolate field to lay down in. Some of these cities are unlivable without a car,
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, I've got a car right now, chat, that is like really in trouble. Like, my moonroof blew off. I was driving down the highway and moonroof blew off, right? And ever since then, I've been having this problem where water finds its way into my car, and I haven't been able to get it fixed. So at this point, I'm just like I would almost like have to pay somebody. Like, the car's waterlogged. Like, my car's really fucked up, chat. I am not in a good place financially speaking. Which is something that got really glossed over during the whole Dylan thing. He made fun of the idea that I might be homeless. He and his friends, like, there was some dipshit out there that was actively joking around about going out to California to vote against public housing just so that I could be so I could die in the streets, on Skid Row somewhere. Like, this is what passes for discourse, right?
There are better systems, and the way towards those systems might not be some gigantic revolution. It might be a willingness to invest in them. You talked earlier about the golden goose, the ability to accrue tax revenue for social services. But here in the U.S., we've got a pretty dismal welfare state, so clearly private ownership isn't doing us any favors in that respect either. I think it's about a social will.
But yeah, like, if I could get rid of that car and just rely on, like, if I could count on being able to stay in the city, then I could rely on public transport. But, like, oh my God, public transport is just barely functional in the city that I live in.
To sacrifice what feels like a little.
And if I get anywhere outside, I am fucked, which is, most of the places that I can afford are outside the city. I'm kind of lucky to be able to live here.
A bit of personal freedom for the enhancement of everybody's, not just other people's, yourselves as well. In some infinitesimal way, all of us, when we pay our taxes, do contribute to systems that we benefit from minor regulatory ones that allow us to breathe the air and drink the water, to large sweeping ones like the United States military, which, while I can't say I'm a huge fan of, at the very least, its existence as a concept is something that the state relies on. So whether we're talking about public transportation, which is something which has myriad economic benefits we should be exploring as a nation, or democratic ownership of the means of production, let's look at it incrementally. What steps are we willing to make? If you're concerned about the externalities of these systems, then maybe try to redress banking's investment bias against cooperatives with a few government incentives, state by state even. It doesn't have to be federal. And as we'll see with time, and I believe this very firmly, if you work at a cooperative, you will be happier.
I feel like this audience, like, I haven't really heard them. I'm not sure they're even there. If they're libertarians, they're not going to get anything out of this. This is a pretty granular, detailed discussion of policy, like, compared to what you normally get at one of these things. And I just don't know, like, I mean, what audience this is really for.
There's a reason why self-ownership is such a
even like a Twitch audience, right, isn't going to grasp a lot of what they're talking
dream in
about.
this country. It's great to be on top, but not everyone can be on top. By definition, we don't live on a single plateau, but we can build a system where everyone can share in the benefits of being on top, have a little bit of control in the places they live, local government, local systems, local democracies, funneling together into something larger. And if we do it well,
I mean, I'm just looking at these three guys, and I'm just thinking, I cannot wait to eat their lunches. I cannot wait to eat their lunches, to pick up the fucking pinata candy from their explosion. I cannot wait, chat. I said before that Vaush is not a pinata. You can't just hit him and expect candy to fall out. I was wrong. I hit him and candy fell out. That's exactly what happened, and I'm going to hit him again, and I'm going to hit Dylan, and I'm going to hit every one of the Bastiat. I'm sorry, you don't have any clout. There's nothing there. There's no pinata there for you, but, like, the rest of these asshole douche bros, I'm going to fuck them up, and I'm going to build my channel on fucking them up, okay? Look for more of that.
We do it incrementally. We see it functions. Maybe we can take it to the big stage.
So I think I appreciate some of what Vaush said there, and I disagree with parts of it. For example, I agree that we have, it's pretty sad actually, the taxes that the average American pays are not as great as you might think. Not so much less than you might think as the Nordics or the Europeans generally pay to get better social services. I was trying to say earlier, one of the biggest problems we have in the United States is, especially when you consider federal, state, local taxes, all in the aggregate. You compare that to some of these other countries, they do have a higher percentage of taxes overall. But again, it's not so much higher than you might think, given the extra services that they seem to get. And a big problem that we have in the United States is that we have designed a lot of these programs in a patchwork fashion. It's inefficient. It is often means tested, which means that a new bureaucracy has been set up for the purposes of determining that only the right people get the money. And that
deriving prosperity from the debate bros. Yeah, especially Dylan.
Privacy, all the rest of it. While society might...
Dylan's like more cringe than the rest. He's easy to see as a disingenuous liar. I mean, Dylan's just an easy target
have a
in
reasonable
so many
claim
ways.
to want to ensure that tax money goes to the right people. The end result is that less money and that more taxes are collected for less benefit for society as a whole. So that's one thing I would say is why I would agree that we don't have the kind of welfare state I would like to have. I think that's mostly not because the
and Vaush is basically cutting himself at this point. Vaush is doing damage to his own brand. I don't even have to do much to Vaush other than stand underneath and collect the candy that falls out.
of Americans to pay for it. I think the problem is that the systems that we have set up are just fundamentally of a patchwork nature. And if we had more universal systems, simpler to understand, something a little more like maybe what Milton Friedman advocated, I wouldn't go so slim as he did, but thinking very seriously about payments in cash instead of payments in or provision of services. Payments in cash, you go out and market and get what it is you like in a hopefully competitive market. He wanted, I believe, a negative income tax that would have been, I was thinking about Andrew Yang's basic income. I'm not a fan of Andrew Yang anymore. The negative income tax, so the idea of
Wait, what changed? I wonder what
being able
changed.
to have a certain amount of money sort of guaranteed. It was a high number. I don't think you do that for everything, but that's one example of how we can provide better services more affordably, more efficiently to people without having to think about how we're going to send taxes through the roof in the process and give people more meaningful freedom in the process of how they use those benefits. So that's one thing. Another point is I think we have to recognize the problems that we have in society. I don't think American competitive enterprise is generally speaking the problem. Well, I can't speak to the sentiment that Vaush mentioned with respect to employees feeling just generally more satisfied and happier. I didn't really see a lot of that. I can say that I think that's something I can totally understand. But what I'm more, I think that the problem to me with a lot of socialist solutions is that they seem to be about how do we change the means of production, and then those benefits kind of wash across society as a whole. And I don't think the lessons of history really support that kind of analysis. I think the best way to go is to have a capitalist economy that is as efficient and powerful as possible, and then we tax that capitalist economy as necessary to pay for social programs for the purpose of ensuring that we've got a society that people feel like they've got a stake in, that they feel like they can depend upon, so that we avoid the kind of abject hopelessness that a lot of people, rightly or wrongly, may feel in our modern society. So that's one point that I'd make there.
Keynesianism.
Beyond that, I certainly agree with incrementalism. I mean, that's kind of the whole neoliberal way. But I think it's important to recognize, too, the nature of the problems that we have in the United States.
The whole neoliberal
so much on
way.
business. I think the biggest problems we have in the United States, again, are housing, healthcare, and education, and those are the result of bad policies, not really the failure of, say, the capitalist system. More like
Chet, that's another thing that we gotta attack. These asshole neoliberals, like, listen, your viewpoint is fucking cringe. Like, people should want to run you out of town. Like, if you're really a neoliberal, if that's really what you stand for, right? This shouldn't be something that you're flexing. You should be running from the neoliberal label, not running to that. We gotta put a price on dipshits like Bastiat calling themselves neoliberals, right? Using that as branding. It's not fucking cool. Anybody with a globe emoji on their Twitter profile should be actively ridiculed, should be actively lolcowed, okay? We're done with this shit. This shit is over.
failure of Americans to live up to their own capitalist principles, trying to protect their home values, for example.
We're done with DGG.
Against their neighbors, with no real moral justifiable claim on doing so. In the process, making it more expensive for everybody else in society to live, making it harder for young people to buy homes, all for the purpose of basically protecting the land values of existing people. And folks, if you've never been to a rezoning hearing, oh my God, that is the most racially...
Bastiat, I can't wait to give you a fucking swirly, dude. I can't wait to give you a shove your head in the toilet social media-wise and flush that thing.
repulsive experience I've ever had in the sense of hearing people get up there and say, I don't want those people in my neighborhood in front of the people in their neighborhood. So that's another thing I'd say is I'm oftentimes very skeptical of the idea that democracy is always the solution and that more of it is always an unparalleled good. Democracy is an important thing with respect to government because with government, hey, you don't have a choice, right? It's real damn hard, unfortunately, to leave not only your own town, your own state, but your own country in particular. And so we need democracy for a variety of reasons, but for one important reason, because it's just so hard to governments have a lot of power over you. And
Do you think Dylan might have some frog DNA? I don't know.
you're very much stuck with the government you got. When it comes to companies,
I just see a frog sitting
it's
there.
really easier to move around, and we should make it easier to move around with more of the kind of universal benefits that I mentioned earlier, instead of the problems right now where we tie people to their jobs with healthcare and with making housing very expensive. So there are a lot of things we need to do, but I don't think it's about the
Am I the
productive
only
side.
one
I
that
think
sees
it's
a
more about
frog?
the distributive side and the regulatory side.
Before Vaush responds,
I don't know,
I'll let
Chad.
Irene respond
Let's
to
not
your
get too...
But I want to
Yeah.
pose this because I want to speak short the governance debate. Why is it that your model, in comparison to the other, is better when it comes to preservation of certain civil liberties like freedom of speech, freedom of the press, freedom of protest, and definitely in the age of people having such an intensive debate about
I feel like Gothics was probably more interesting than this.
text
Whatever
censorship, for example.
Gothics
I'll let the
did.
beginning response be about what he just said, but I want to make sure we cover
I
that.
should have covered that
Of course.
instead.
I can tackle those both, I think. Tempted as I am to talk about the ways in which I think a cooperative system universally would still be able to pay for the necessary welfare costs of a modern society, I think I might be putting the cart before the horse here because I have a feeling that many of the people in the audience wouldn't agree with me that welfare is something we should be investing in anyway. So I'd like to take a step back, if I may, and address what I think might be the more fundamental problem here, which is, again, liberty. With regards to liberty, the problem that I have with American libertarianism, as it's traditionally expressed, is that liberty is gatekept behind wealth. In this country, you are not free to do what you want unless you have wealth. You are free from many things, certainly. That old adage, what is it? It is equally
I'm a little
unlawful for both the wealthy
surprised.
man and the poor man to sleep beneath the bridge. When laws are built
I'm a little surprised he's going here.
in such a way as to discourage behaviors more likely to be engaged in by the working class, these are not laws which are fundamentally encouraging healthy guidelines to what a good society is.
Does frog equal Pepe? I don't know. No.
What we're really doing is socially determining the corral, the barbed wire, around where it
Like, Pepe's more
is
exciting.
and is not
I don't
comfortable to
know.
be. Now, most people in this country can't afford a small emergency. So I don't think most people in this country are able to really experience the incredible social and technological benefits of living in the 21st century. Now, I can, and I know a lot of people in this audience can, but I know there are a lot of folks who can't, who nonetheless advocate for certain positions because they believe that the freedom of the wealthy is the freedom of all. And to that, I would say, to me, this is nothing more than a
Gothics at least had the decency to leave the left and isn't just wasting space.
contemporary defense of the aristocracy. Back in feudal Europe, to be a lord or lady, I suppose, what you really, at the fundamental level, needed to do was have a large army and conquer a given bit of land, and you just asserted your will on the local population in a manner which is not at all corporate in the sense that it was directly and governmentally authoritarian, sure, but it was a freedom, wasn't it? After all, we're not directly talking about violence against common people. We're talking about higher level political conflict, and then as a result of it, an aristocrat has the opportunity now to control the land around them, and if you work there, that's you working for your rent, essentially. That's a type of freedom we decided was harmful to the freedom of others. The freedom of the few aristocrats was not more important than the freedom of the many, many, many serfs. Some people think this is hyperbolic, and to an extent
The
it is,
serfs.
but I think that it's a similar logic. We should be promoting freedoms which are truly universal, absolutely and utterly without any requirements, because that's what freedom is. Freedom can't be conditional, because when freedom becomes conditional, you're only enforcing a class system. A class system, in the modern sense, perhaps, may be more defensible than that of the feudal Europe, or in times past, or the old Indian caste system, or whatever the Romans did, if one wanted to look that up. But
The thing is, like, anybody at this conference is zoned out by now. Like, they don't understand anything that Vaush said. They don't understand what Bastiat said. They got left in the dust.
is nonetheless a caste system. So let's look at systems that are truly universalized, not just in who gets their money, but also in who has say over what is done with it. And when it comes to democratically run corporations, not only do you accrue the many benefits I spoke of earlier, higher happiness, lower turnover, greater capital investment, higher rate of return because of lower chance of being closed, and those are good benefits, by the way, you also get a common understanding. This society that I live in is mine. Every brick, every tile, every window, every roof tile, everything in it is mine and everyone else's. I have a direct investment in the well-being of myself and my neighbor, because when you believe that and your neighbor believes that, both of you are better off. It's the social contract. And while competitiveness is a valuable part, not just of the human spirit, but also of modern economies, it can at times lead us to believe that conditional benefits are the same thing as universal liberation. So I reject that. And I would hope that many people in the audience, who I'm sure would disagree with me on a lot of stuff, would agree that a truly fair libertarian society would be one where the benefits of all are ensured by the incentive structures and systems that we built, not just a small privileged few. Because if you run down that road, I mean, eventually, and you've seen corporate towns, I'm sure historically, eventually you just get back to feudalism. I think everything gets back to feudalism with enough, time and free non-intervention.
I don't know, Vaush. Ask an omni-feudalist about that.
Engagement outside of some kind of broader power structure. You create a power vacuum outside of any intervention. So that's my opinion on that.
And I'm happy to address the point you mentioned earlier as well. I have to say I appreciate Vaush's discussion, a discussion feeling of public property, because I have to say that just does not seem to be the way I think most people think about public property, except in the occasional idealistic type of sense. For everybody in society to own something, it's for nobody to own it. It's for the state to own it. It's for the people who are legally able to exercise power over that thing to own it. So I reject the idea that something that is socially owned is something you feel like you very much have a stake in. I feel like I have a stake, for example, when I drive past a military base or when I drive past a public school, but at the end of the day, in terms of the authority I have over that property, it is very little to none. And I think it is important to recognize that while democracy is important, the democracy does not automatically really change that reality, right? You still have to go through the laborious process, and it is a worthwhile process, and I would say it is a noble process. But nevertheless, the process of exercising your will, convincing other people to get to your side, and then you can exercise change as you see fit, but certainly never alone, always with others. That's not a bad thing. That's how democracy works. But I don't think I think it's important not to overestimate the very real difference between public property and private property. Private property is a meaningful thing because when you can acquire it, it means that you have the ability to exercise authority over that property. Not unlimited, of course, but certainly much greater than you would over, say, a form of public property that you have no ownership right in. So that's one point I'd say. Another point I would say is I reject the idea, despite all the problems that I've highlighted here, that our system does not still, perhaps more than ever in some ways, materially benefit most people in this country. The middle class, I saw this recently actually in a chart from a great guy by the name of Scott Linscomb, which is the Cato Institute, where he showed that the middle class has shrunk. And also the lower class has shrunk because there are more people who are wealthy in the United States than there have been really ever before. Now, it's not an appreciably great difference, but there have been increases in wealth in this country in the past, say, 20 years. We've had some serious economic crises, unfortunately, and we're still arguably in the midst of one. But it is worth taking the long view sometimes, too, and recognizing that in this country, we've had not just a great amount of wealth accumulation, but a great amount of opportunity for a lot of people. And I mean, you can see it in the miracles in our friggin' pockets here, the kind of...
Listen, we have cell phones. Everybody's got a microwave in their kitchen. We're doing pretty well. Okay, you got a refrigerator, you got nothing to complain about.
Incredible technology that provides
It's
all
like
kinds of
a
wonderful
Fox
jobs and
News
opportunities.
tape.
It's important not to lose sight of that stuff, folks, because when you do, you look at some of the societies that have given that kind of thing up in the past, and I think it's easy to forget just kind of how much we have in this country and maybe take it for granted. But it is also very important, and this would also, I think, go out to a lot of libertarians here, not to say, well, you see, you have the opportunity to make it just as well as I did, and therefore, I'll just kind of sit there and stew in a principled starvation if you're not doing so well. No. You cannot argue people into suffering based on principles alone. And I really do believe that. You've got to give people some material basis for hope and a future, some material basis for a sense of security, and a feeling that if I try for a better life, I try something different, I'm not going to necessarily end up completely destitute and hopeless. It is important to account for that, because when that happens, and when it is not accounted for, it becomes a core of populist movements that we are seeing more vicious than ever in this country.
Vicious populist movements, okay.
And those kinds of movements are based often on false narratives, but there is always a core of genuine suffering in those narratives. And I think it is important that we recognize that the state has an important role to play to relieve what Milton Friedman called, justly, acute distress and misery. The state's got to alleviate that so that the rest of the competitive order that delivers all these benefits I've been talking about at length here has the room to work, and people feel like they got a chance, got a stake in it, feel that the whole business of private property is something that they can be a part of too.
I feel like Bastiat should have been like a singer in the 80s. He could have been like one of those guys, the 80s dudes that they wear a suit and tie, but they're like in a band. You know what I'm talking about? That guy?
It's not. Well, then,
is it one
then
guy?
So I
Or
think
is
in
it
that
many
sense,
guys?
I believe that capitalism preserves, or rather, liberal.
It's like one guy with a suit and tie, and there's like lots of women behind him. What am I thinking of, chat? What is this? What am I visioning?
capitalism, liberal democracy, all of these things preserve not just the individual freedom that I talk about by respecting private property, respecting individual rights, but because they promote effective welfare states, that I've talked about, for example, in Europe, those states add to people's positive liberties and, I would argue, reinforce the security of some of those negative liberties. Because while we give something up when we pay our taxes, when we pay for the aircraft carriers that I hope, as we speak, are making plans to defend our allies in Taiwan, or who should be our allies at least, we nevertheless recognize that's an imposition on our freedom, right? But it's an important imposition to make in defense of a free world writ large.
Yep. Okay, so we have 3 minutes left, so you're both gonna have 1-minute outros. and
Addicted
afterwards,
to
Charles
Love.
will
Wait, what
wrap
is
up.
that
You
guy
both have been
called?
extremely civil, and I had to do nothing today, so I appreciate it.
Happy to
is
make
the-
you
the
your
singer?
weapon. There's a
Why do
concept
I
in
think
philosophy
it's
called
Steely
availability.
Dan? It's not
You
Steely
enter,
Dan, right?
among
It's
other
not
things, the work
Steely
of
Dan.
society based on your average prospects. If you were to enter as a member without knowing who you
Robert
would become,
Palmer.
it must be remembered that to the average American,
Wait, wasn't that the guy from Led Zeppelin?
while private property ownership is a delightful thing, to many of them, to most of them, this is not theirs. It's somebody else's. Their house, they rent. Their business, not theirs. That's controlled by somebody else. That lawn, that street, that city.
I could envision him as a soft rock singer. Basquiat and the Troll Dolls. He is born in the wrong decade. True.
Owning things is great when you're the one who owns them. But to the common welfare, the vast majority of people, just by mathematical certainty, do not. All the world belonged to everyone before we divvied it up and set property lines in place. And that might be a dreamy hippie notion, but in a way, when free land is taken
20
and
seconds.
the government takes it and they divvy it up and give it off to corporate interests, something fundamentally there is lost, a common will, an inheritance, and I think that we can take it back. Whether you believe in revolution, reform, welfare or not, we should all here believe in freedom, and however we achieve that, we should be deliberate and universal in how we do so.
Bastiat?
I would thank you, Dylan, and thank you, Vaush. I really enjoyed this. I would only say one that I would reject the
You really enjoyed this. This is like
idea that
Robert
Vaush posited
Plant.
of saying,
Oh, not
most people
Robert
do not
Palmer.
own
Okay.
For example, in the United States, I think should otherwise.
Okay.
Private property is something that's widespread and enjoyed on a wide basis in this country. One of the problems that we have, though, is that, for example, in place of a social welfare system, we have a system of easy access to credit, which is how a lot of Americans meet basic
It's
needs.
the hippy dippy,
Of
Vosh.
course, which has some disadvantages, you might argue.
I'm
and
thinking
they're
of
reasonably
Robert
over
Plant.
greater access to some of the
Okay,
programs
okay.
I described.
Different guy. Different
Freedom
guy.
as basic income, things like that. So I would say this.
Wait, wasn't Robert Palmer in some like classic rock shit though? Wasn't he like part of one of those those super groups?
I believe
like
that
Led
liberal capitalism,
Zeppelin?
particularly the American variety, has done more to drive the progress and advancement of humankind.
You know, like when there's people from like bands that have been popular and then they break up and then they put the like this guy that was popular and this guy and they put them all together in a band, right?
250 years in any other world
It's like a
historic force in
70s
history
thing?
yet devised, and perhaps who knows what the future may bring. But I think it's very much worth
Wouldn't a
defending and
classical
protecting.
libertarian
And I
be
would hope
just an
that for
ANCOM?
those of you who agree with me on the basics of that, you would also agree with me that it's important we recognize that there are other important elements that must be protected: a strong military that can help us and our democratic allies defend one another
Guys
against
are
rising
so fucking
authoritarians,
boring.
the People's Republic of China in particular.
I'm gonna enjoy
and
eating
also
your
a social
lunch.
welfare state that can help
I'm gonna
Americans feel
enjoy
like, hey, you know
eating your
what,
lunch.
capitalism's great, but I also don't have to feel like I'm going to be flat on my back if I don't win out from it. It's important.
Eating your lunch for breakfast. All right, chat. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for enduring this with me. A lot of you dropped off because this was boring as shit. I don't blame them at all. Those people that left were based. I'm not going to complain about lack of views. I'm just going to end this stream, and maybe if people want to watch this, they can watch it here. I'll probably make a short about it too, just to like kind of warn. I just want to make a short being like, yeah, you don't need to watch this. It's worthless. It's worthless. Let me explain what it is. Let me explain what happened, and you just watch my short instead. Because honestly, I think that all this shit could be just summarized in 1 minute. That's all it takes. Anyway, Moe, Kyun, fly my pretties. Meow.